The story introduces Oshiro Shintaro, a man with a dark gaze holding a knife, and a young, innocent-looking girl named Yamamoto Yatsuba, hinting at the complex relationship that will unfold. Oshiro Shintaro is seen with a crazed intensity, obsessively writing, his mind consumed by a singular, dark purpose. His room is a reflection of his troubled mind, with walls covered in posters of politicians he despises. He meticulously writes down his thoughts, a manifesto of his growing resentment. Surrounded by tools and weapons in a room filled with murderous intent, Oshiro prepares to unleash his own brand of justice, believing he will be the hero who saves his country. The news and social media are filled with negativity, citizens lamenting that Japan is done for, criticizing useless politicians, and a headline declaring that someone must stop the nation's collapse. This constant stream of bad news fuels Oshiro's anger. This is Oshiro Shintaro, 39 years old and unemployed. Despite his situation, he has honed his body into a weapon, training with a knife, determined to get the job done. Oshiro looks at himself with disgust, feeling that his own life is completely worthless. He sees himself as the bottom of the barrel, poorly educated, low income, and from a low social class. His life is a cycle of low-paying jobs, like this one as a traffic guard, and returning to a worn-down house. But a fire burns within him. With a look of grim determination, Oshiro decides that he can't just die like this, in misery and obscurity. His anxiety grows as he walks past posters of smiling politicians, wondering what he's supposed to do with his life. If he doesn't take action, what will become of him? He glares at the posters, his frustration mounting. The current government is run by the Japan Koden Party. Oshiro has identified 6 key figures, led by the Prime Minister, as his primary targets. Believing he is trained enough, he feels the time has finally come to act. Back in his room, Oshiro stares at the photos of his 6 targets pinned to the wall. His plan is set. He will take them all down in 1 week. His obsession begins to consume him. He laughs manically at the politicians' faces, yelling at the inanimate photos to shut up. His thoughts are interrupted by the constant noise from the large family that moved in next door. As he looks around his cluttered room, he ominously declares that this will be his last week. Losing his temper from the incessant noise, Oshiro furiously kicks the wall separating his apartment from his neighbors. Almost immediately after, the doorbell rings, startling him in the middle of his frustration. He opens the door to find his neighbor, an aggressive-looking woman with blonde hair, who immediately confronts him, asking if he wants to fight. The neighbor mother doesn't wait for an answer, grabbing Oshiro by his collar and yelling that she has 8 kids in her apartment. Oshiro, looking defeated, can only mumble that he doesn't want to fight. She gets closer, her face contorted with anger. She screams that it's only 10 p.m., not even midnight, and questions if he has a problem with her kids still being awake. From the apartment building, her shouting continues as she complains about the difficulty of raising 8 children with no financial aid in a country with a declining birth rate. Oshiro retreats into his apartment as the neighbor mother stands in the hallway, threatening to call a gangster she knows if he ever hits the wall again. As she yells, a small, worried child peeks out from behind her. "Don't you ever hit the wall again, you old bastard." Back in his apartment, Oshiro scoffs, calling her a toxic parent. He sits down, dejected, thinking that now, even more miserable kids exist in the world, born to a parent who had them without thinking. The confrontation triggers a painful memory. Oshiro recalls a dark figure from his own past, his own father, violently abusing him as a child, showing where his deep-seated trauma began. His father's cruel words, "Real men don't cry," "worthless failure," echo in his mind. The memory fades, and Oshiro is back in the present, trying to drink the pain away, connecting his current feelings of worthlessness to his childhood abuse. After his fit of rage, Oshiro sits back and lights a cigarette, a moment of calm reflection washing over him. He dismisses his anger, musing that the woman next door is, in her own way, just another victim of the country he despises. Still, his resolve is unchanged. His plan is set for 1 week from now. His quiet moment is shattered by a sudden burst of conviction. He leaps up, his voice filled with a desperate, manic energy. and screams to the empty room his ultimate goal. He will save this nation. The scene unexpectedly shifts. As Oshiro is busy changing a light bulb, he is not alone. Yamamoto Yatsuba, the little girl from next door, has somehow appeared in his apartment and is curiously inspecting his belongings. Oshiro turns and freezes in shock. He sees Yatsuba standing there, nonchalantly eating a bag of chips, as if it's the most normal thing in the world for her to be in a stranger's apartment. Completely bewildered, Oshiro stares as Yatsuba stands directly in front of his wall of targets. At her feet is the large, dark hole he had kicked in the wall earlier, revealing exactly how she got in. The memory of his angry kick flashes in his mind. Yatsuba simply explains that the walls in her room have holes, so she just went through them, as a diagram illustrates her crawling from her side to his. Panic sets in as Yatsuba points towards his neatly arranged collection of knives and weapons on the pegboard, asking what they are. Oshiro collapses in despair, his mind racing. If he's found out his entire plan, his life's new purpose will be over. From his perspective on the floor, Oshiro looks up at the small girl standing before him, his hands trembling. His thoughts darken as he contemplates what to do with this little brat, who threatens to unravel everything. The next day, the scene changes to a nearby park. In a surprising turn of events, Oshiro is sitting on a bench next to Yatsuba, a silent truce seemingly in place. Both wearing sunglasses to be incognito, Oshiro tells Yatsuba he got the thing she asked for. It appears a deal has been struck, and she is now holding a toy gun, likely a bribe for her silence. Yatsuba seems pleased with her end of the bargain, a day's worth of snacks. As she walks away, Oshiro watches her, his expression unreadable behind his sunglasses. Back at the apartment complex, kneeling by the hole, Oshiro confirms Yatsuba's name and makes her promise not to tell her mother. Yatsuba, however, sees an opportunity. With a sly smile, she makes a counteroffer. She'll keep the secret if he buys her snacks every single day. Oshiro is furious at this unexpected complication. This is not the time for this. He looks at the materials for his homemade bomb, including bug spray, realizing this child has stumbled into his life at the worst possible moment. He decides to compartmentalize. He'll just have to cover up the hole for now and focus on carrying out his grand plan next week, hoping this problem with the child doesn't escalate. But Yatsuba isn't finished. She has another request. He also needs to buy snacks for her younger brothers and sisters. She lists off 4 names, holding up 5 fingers to include herself. Oshiro is shocked to learn there are 5 of them. Yatsuba clarifies that her older brother and sister aren't home, so it's just the 5 younger ones. Oshiro worries that buying snacks for so many children will surely get him caught by their mother. But Yatsuba reassures him, taking off her sunglasses and stating that their mom is hardly ever home enough to notice anything. Stunned by her casual admission, Oshiro asks a crucial question. Who prepares their meals? Yatsuba's reply is chilling. They don't get meals. They just endure the hunger until morning. The girl's words weigh heavily on him. As he rides his scooter through the city, he finds himself in a daze, wondering what the hell he is doing with his life, getting entangled with these neglected children. While stopped in traffic, he glances over at the car next to him and is surprised to see a familiar face in the driver's seat. It's the neighbor mother. He watches in silence as she passionately kisses an unknown man in the passenger seat, completely oblivious to the world around them. Oshiro watches with cold fury as her car speeds away. His mind burns with a single thought. What the hell is she doing, leaving her kids all alone at home while she's out with a man? Having made a decision, Oshiro returns to his apartment. He finds Yatsuba and hands her a plastic bag full of groceries, not just snacks. He explains that snacks alone aren't enough, handing over a bag of proper food. He watches in silence as Yatsuba takes the bag and disappears back through the hole in the wall, leaving him alone in his quiet apartment. Slumped against the wall, Oshiro reflects on the absurd irony of his situation. While the children's mother is out pursuing her own selfish pleasures, he, a man who planned to be a national savior, is instead here, feeding her abandoned kids. Oshiro stares blankly, wondering how his life took this strange turn. From the other side of the wall, through the hole now playfully labeled Yatsuba's tunnel. He can hear the children's happy voices exclaiming how delicious the food is. He sits in the dark, listening to the sounds of pure joy from next door. The children celebrate over cheeseburgers, fries, and nuggets, their cheerful chatter filling the silence of his lonely apartment. Oshiro tries to shut it out, his expression hardening. He tells himself that this is all just background noise, something to be ignored. He descends into a dark internal monologue, dismissing the children's voices as noise he doesn't need in his life. But his own past trauma intrudes, the memory of his father's abusive yelling echoing in his head. Just as he's lost in his dark thoughts, a piece of paper is poked through the hole. It's Yatsuba, emerging from the tunnel again, pulling him back to the present. She explains that she's just returning the trash from the meal, so that her mom won't find out. With her task done, she prepares to leave. But before she disappears, she turns back. She holds out her own half-eaten hamburger, offering it to him. She tells him he can eat it, but he refuses. He is completely taken aback, asking with disbelief if the hamburger is really for him. Looking at him earnestly, she explains that she wants to give him her portion as a thank you, declaring that he is her favorite guy. Deeply moved, Oshiro can only stammer out a thanks as he accepts the small gift. Yatsuba gives him a cheerful wink and a peace sign, wishing him good night before disappearing back through her tunnel. The scene cuts to his workbench, where his homemade shotgun lies ready, a stark and brutal contrast to the simple, kind offering he now holds in his hand. Oshiro looks at the squashed hamburger, then takes a bite. He reflects on the naivety of children, especially those who are poor and have never been shown anything different. He chides himself for feeling happy about receiving a gift he paid for. But the truth of the situation crashes down on him as he pictures the squalor next door. She gave it to him because she has nothing. No food, no money. He clutches the hamburger, the weight of her desperation hitting him with full force. These children have absolutely nothing. As he continues to eat the hamburger given to him by a starving child, tears stream down Oshiro's face. He has a profound realization. If he doesn't focus on his own life, he will truly have nothing to give to others who are suffering even more than him. Oshiro Shintaro, a man consumed by despair, continues his secret routine. For 5 days, he has been passing food through a hole in the wall to his neglected neighbors. A calendar marks the passage of time, with the 16th circled, a day he had designated for a different, darker purpose. The time for preparation is over. Oshiro carefully packs his gear, including a homemade shotgun, into a backpack. His movements are methodical and filled with grim determination. Wearing a beanie and a face mask, Oshiro stands ready to leave his apartment. Behind him, a calendar shows it is July, and the wall is covered with the faces of politicians, his original targets. On the left, we see the boarded-up hole in the wall he once used to feed the children. On the right, the faces of politicians are pinned to the wall, each one pierced by a sharp object, a chilling testament to his meticulous and hateful planning. A close-up on Oshiro's eyes reveals a burning intensity. The despair has been forged into a sharp, focused rage, ready to be unleashed. Now fully disguised, Oshiro declares that today will be the death anniversary for the corrupt figures he blames for his misery. His initial plan of political assassination is about to begin. Just as he is about to leave, a commotion from his neighbor's apartment stops him in his tracks. A desperate voice cries out, "Let me go, you bastard!" Oshiro's anger flares. He hears more shouting. "Fuck! Let go of me! Where are you taking the kid?" His focus shifts from his grand plan to the immediate violence unfolding next door. The aggressor's voice cuts through the wall, cold and cruel. "Shut up, bitch. This is because of your debt." The motive is clear. This is a violent debt collection. Oshiro rushes to his neighbor's apartment. He's met with a scene of despair. The mother is collapsed on the floor, her home in disarray. He realizes the man's voice he heard belongs to an intruder. Stunned, Oshiro takes in the chaotic scene. His neighbor is crumpled on the floor, while another woman sits in the background, equally distressed. He asks what's going on, unable to process the situation. His eyes dart to the back of the room, where he sees 2 small children hiding in fear. The question, "What happened hangs in the air as the grim reality sets in. The mother, her face bruised and full of anguish, turns to him. She explains that her child was taken. Oshiro watches, a silent witness to her pain. Oshiro quickly moves to the balcony, peering down at the street below, trying to catch a glimpse of the kidnapper's vehicle as it speeds away. The mother explains the horrifying truth through her tears. It was the Yakuza. They took her daughter, Yatsuba, as payment for her debt. Oshiro is stunned into silence. An image of the little girl, Yatsuba, flashes in his mind, the same child he had been secretly feeding. The mother reveals the true depth of her powerlessness. She can't call the police because the Yakuza are backed by the powerful Kakubo group, who have already destroyed her friend's house. Oshiro's patience snaps. He grabs the mother, his face contorted with rage, demanding to know if she will simply stand by and let her child suffer. Overwhelmed by fear and helplessness, she screams back at him, "I don't know." The two are trapped in a vortex of desperation. Her facade crumbles completely. She confesses that she's at her limit, that no matter how much she sacrifices, the debt and burdens are inescapable. It's an impossible situation. The mother finally collapses, physically and emotionally defeated, repeating that she's at her limit. Oshiro can only stand and watch her utter breakdown. The remaining children cry out for their mama as she sobs, pleading for someone, anyone, to help her. Her cry for help is directed at a stunned Oshiro. A profound shift occurs within Oshiro. He looks down at the calendar, at the circled date, the 16th, the day he intended to start his war on politicians. But now a new, more immediate target has appeared. With cold, unwavering resolve, Oshiro pulls his mask up over his face. His original plan is abandoned. Today, his war begins not with politicians, but with the ones who took the child. His new destination is an unassuming building housing the Saraku Sanjo office. Inside, the Yakuza hold Yatsuba, completely unaware that a rescuer of a terrifying new kind is now on his way. Inside the Saraku Sanjo office, the Yakuza boss reviews the details of their latest acquisition. His subordinates stand around, one of them holding the terrified Yamamoto Yatsuba. The file confirms her identity. Yamamoto Yatsuba, 8 years old. The men casually discuss her as if she were merchandise. The boss gives his orders, arranging for the girl's delivery. He confirms with his underling that Yatsuba has 7 more siblings, seeing them only as future assets. A cruel realization dawns on the men. With so many siblings, there's a lot more money to be earned. They laugh at the prospect of kidnapping more children from the desperate family. Outside, Oshiro listens in horror. He hears them joke about paying $1 million for another girl. He questions his chances against 8 armed men, but their depravity fuels his resolve. Hesitation gives way to action. Oshiro bursts through the door, grabbing the nearest Yakuza member and holding a knife to his eye. He screams that he doesn't care about the odds. With Yatsuba's fate hanging in the balance, Oshiro knows he is her only hope. He throws the human shield forward, creating a chaotic entrance to begin his assault. The sudden, violent intrusion sends a room into chaos. The Yakuza members, caught completely off guard, scramble to react to the masked attacker. Oshiro stands firm, brandishing his crude, multi-barreled shotgun. From an overhead view, we see the bodies of the first 2 men on the floor. The boss, stunned, can only ask if this is a raid. A terrifying close-up reveals the crude but deadly nature of Oshiro's weapon. 4 pipes bundled together, an instrument of pure, unadulterated carnage. The Yakuza boss screams in a mix of fury and disbelief, recognizing the weapon for what it is, a homemade gun. Everyone, get your guns out. The remaining Yakuza draw their pistols and charge towards Oshiro, attempting to overwhelm him with their superior numbers and firearms. Oshiro fires. The homemade shotgun erupts, and 2 more Yakuza are brutally dispatched with simultaneous headshots. The room is a scene of carnage. Bodies lie on the floor as the remaining gangsters look on in shock and horror at the raw power of the amateur's weapon. "Kill him," the boss screams. As the gangsters open fire, Oshiro grabs one of their own, using him as a human shield against the hail of bullets. For a fleeting moment, Oshiro seems to question his own actions. An unnerving calm has settled over him, and he wonders why he isn't panicking. The remaining Yakuza try to press their advantage, but Oshiro is too quick. He dodges a clumsy attack and closes the distance, switching from range to melee combat in an instant. With brutal efficiency, Oshiro plunges his knife into 2 more Yakuza members, taking them down in a single, fluid motion. Oshiro improvises, throwing his knife to disarm one attacker just as another takes aim. The fight becomes a blur of calculated violence. Amidst the slaughter, Oshiro feels a chilling sense of calm. He acknowledges he's never used a gun before and briefly questions if he should stop. But a new, darker part of him has already taken control. A surviving gangster, seeing Oshiro now unarmed, thinks he can take him with his bare hands. But the Yakuza boss is merely surprised, watching the bizarre turn of events. The boss is the last one standing, his office littered with the bodies of his men. In just 30 seconds, 7 of them are dead. He confronts Oshiro, baffled by the strange gun, and asking if he's a professional. The boss points his gun at Oshiro, demanding to know who hired him. He can't comprehend that this attack isn't business, but something far more personal and chaotic. The boss screams, "Don't move. It's your turn to die." As he takes aim, his own reflection is visible in Oshiro's terrified, yet strangely calm eyes. As he aims, the boss seems to notice something off about his opponent. He mutters, "Your pinky is missing." A common assumption for hired killers in his world, yet something feels wrong about this masked man. In the tense standoff, Oshiro calmly looks at the crime boss. With unsettling confidence, he predicts, "Your gun will miss." A strange euphoria washes over Oshiro. He wonders to himself how he could have possibly known the boss would miss, despite this being his first time in a gunfight. A natural, terrifying instinct is awakening. The boss hesitates, sweat beading on his forehead. He knows Oshiro is right, but his pride won't let him back down. The answer is obvious. He has to shoot. In a flash, Oshiro dodges the bullet and closes the distance, driving his knife deep into the boss's throat. As the man falls, Oshiro reveals his newfound identity. "I am a genius murderer." Oshiro stands over the corpse of the last Yakuza, the architect of Yatsuba's abduction. A quiet, unsettling laugh begins to bubble up from within him. The quiet laugh erupts into a full-blown, manic cackle. He admits to himself that he's never killed before, and the realization fills him with a horrifying sense of joy and power. A flashback to his old life as a traffic warden. He remembers the feeling of being invisible, of his life being a void of pure emptiness. Back in the present, surrounded by death, he screams in triumph, "I've finally found it. My talent. Proof that I exist." He stares down at his blood-soaked hands, the proof of his newfound purpose. Oshiro examines his bloody hands with fascination. He turns from the carnage, his grim work complete, only to be stopped by a small voice calling out, "Old man." He finds Yatsuba hiding behind a bookshelf, trembling. The chaos of the massacre fades as his focus shifts entirely to the terrified child he came to save. His expression softens as he sees her. Kneeling down, he gently unties her hands and pulls her into a protective embrace, shielding her from the horrors around them. He holds her tight, whispering words of comfort. "Everything's all right now. I'm here for you." For the first time since her abduction, Yatsuba is safe. Gently, Oshiro removes the crude bag that had been placed over Yatsuba's head. Her face is stained with sweat and tears, her small body trembling with fear. The little girl lets out a raw, desperate cry of gratitude, the single word "thanks," carrying all the weight of her terrifying ordeal. Overwhelmed, Oshiro sheds a single tear. He then gently guides Yatsuba away from the bloody scene, his mission almost complete. With his blood-stained hand still on her, he pulls her into one last hug. "Well, let's get you home," he says, the promise of safety finally within reach. As a final touch, Oshiro leaves behind an improvised explosive device. The timer ticks away, set to erase all evidence of his bloody work and send a message to those who prey on the weak. The chapter opens on a grim scene. A building scarred by a recent violent incident, is surrounded by police cars and cordoned off with tape as investigators begin their work. Police officers hold back the public, warning them of the danger. Meanwhile, two imposing bald men in suits try to push their way onto the scene, but are intercepted by a younger man with an armband, Sakamoto, who tells them they can't enter. Sakamoto pleads with the two men to listen to him, but they ignore his authority and duck under the police tape, entering the restricted area. Another man in a suit, Nakai, calmly tells Sakamoto that the two men are approved to be there. He advises Sakamoto not to worry and, more importantly, not to get involved. The two bald men glare menacingly, with a clear warning being issued. Do not pick a fight with the Kokubu group. Inside the building, amidst the debris, one of the bald men known as Aniki crouches down to inspect the gruesome scene, where a body lies on the floor. With a steady hand, Aniki reaches towards the victim's disfigured face, preparing to retrieve something from within the wreckage. In a shocking and bizarre method of investigation, Aniki places the evidence he retrieved from the body directly into his own mouth to analyze it by taste. He immediately gags, the taste seemingly vile. The other forensics workers look on, horrified and disgusted by his unorthodox methods. Aniki spits out the object, revealing a small metal pellet lodged in the piercing on his tongue. His partner approaches him, calling him Aniki, and asking what he found out from his disgusting taste test. The partner examines the pellets, noting that they look like silver bullets from a shotgun. However, he realizes there are no cartridge cases and questions if they might just be simple fishing sinkers from a home center. Based on the crude ammunition, he comes to a chilling conclusion. The weapon used wasn't professional. It was a homemade gun. The scene shifts to the man responsible, Oshiro Shintaro, as he rides away on a scooter with the young girl Yatsuba. He internally reflects that if the killer used such crude equipment, he couldn't be a professional. He was just an ordinary person. As they drive through the city, they pass a large campaign board covered in the posters of politicians, a visual echo of Oshiro's former, now abandoned, obsession. Oshiro and Yatsuba arrive at her apartment building. They climb the stairs, and he presses the buzzer for apartment 2 to 404. The door swings open to reveal Yatsuba's mother. Her eyes widen in pure shock and disbelief as she sees her daughter standing there safe. Yatsuba looks up at her mother and quietly says, "I'm back." Her mother is too stunned to speak, simply staring at the daughter she thought she might have lost forever. Finally breaking from her shock, Yatsuba's mother drops to her knees and pulls the little girl into a powerful, desperate hug. In the background, other small children, Yatsuba's siblings, peek out from the doorway. Clutching Yatsuba, her mother breaks down into tears, apologizing over and over. She sobs, telling her daughter how sorry she is for being a bad mother. Wrapped in her mother's embrace, the fear and tension finally leave Yatsuba as she begins to cry, relieved to be home. Seeing their sister and mother crying, the other children rush forward and join the hug, all of them clinging together. Standing back, Oshiro watches the emotional reunion with a quiet, unreadable expression. Oshiro turns to leave the family to their moment, but Yatsuba's mother calls out for him to wait, her voice filled with urgency. She looks at him, her face a mixture of confusion, desperation, and a sliver of hope, as she struggles to form the question burning in her mind. How did he manage to bring her daughter back? Her mind races through the possibilities. Did he resolve it with money? Through discussion? Or did he have powerful connections? She asks aloud, unable to comprehend how this quiet stranger could have possibly succeeded. Before he can answer, Yatsuba's mother, Yamato, notices something horrifying. Her eyes fixate on his hand, where splatters of blood are visible on his sleeve, and a dreadful realization dawns on her. There's no way, did he? Oshiro ignores her questions about money and connections. He delivers a grim, urgent warning. Yamato, we should move out of this house. Kokubu has this address. It's only a matter of time before they come for us. Yamato is stunned by the news. Move out? Come for us? She repeats in disbelief. Oshiro looks out over the cityscape and confirms her fears, telling her to leave right away if possible. The weight of the situation crushes Yamato. She panics, screaming at him. Are you kidding me? Where do I even go? And where do I get money from? But Oshiro is unmoved, coldly telling her that now is not the time to worry about such things, and that she must prioritize her children's safety. He gives her one last, sharp command, leaving no room for argument. Fulfill your duty as their mother. Oshiro turns and leaves without another word. Yamato is left standing alone in the hallway, surrounded by her children. She trembles, clenching her fists in a storm of helpless rage and despair. Returning to his own apartment next door, Oshiro leans against the wall, exhausted. He removes his beanie, wiping his face, the adrenaline from the night's events finally beginning to wear off. Inside his Spartan apartment, he quickly strips off his hoodie, eager to wash away the filth and blood of his recent actions. He throws his clothes in a pile and heads for the shower. The panels reveal a physique honed by relentless training, a body transformed into a weapon. As he washes himself, his mind races. He thinks about the need to escape, to take only the essentials and leave everything unnecessary behind. After his shower, dressed only in shorts, he rushes through his apartment. A frantic energy possesses him as he thinks, "Hurry up, before those guys start coming after us. I'll go somewhere far away where they can't reach me, as fast as I can." He comes to a stop in his room, which is filled with workout gear and tools. His eyes land on a cardboard box in the middle of the floor. From the box, he pulls out an envelope. The characters on it are stark and clear. Death Testament. It's his own last will. With a towel draped over his shoulders, he stands and calmly reads over the will he prepared before setting out on his mission. He sits on the floor of his workshop, surrounded by his tools and equipment, and lights a cigarette, placing it next to his will. Leaning against his drawers, with his wall of targeted politicians and weapons in the background, he takes a long drag from his cigarette, lost in thought. Now wearing a clean hoodie, he sits in the quiet of his room and a strange, new thought surfaces. I finally feel alive again. He stares at the wall, at the photos of politicians he had intended to assassinate, each one pinned by a knife. Yesterday, he thinks, I should have rushed into the party Congress meeting and killed all those politicians. I was supposed to die. He continues his reflection. But I failed to fulfill my goal. I killed some Yakuza and came here. But why? Oshiro looks at the blueprints for his homemade weapons. He failed at the grand plan he had held onto for so long. And yet, despite that failure, he wonders, why is tobacco so good? He runs a hand through his hair, a sheen of sweat on his brow. The contradiction of his feelings is overwhelming. A look of strange pleasure crosses his face. Why do I feel so fulfilled? He asked himself. It's almost enchanting. I've never felt this way before. His mind flashes back to the crime scene from the previous night. He reflects on what he learned. I thought I was weak. About my strength. His mind flashes back to the massacre. He'd always thought he had no talent for violence, no capacity for it. But standing there, amidst the carnage he created, he realized that for the first time in his life, he had tasted complete triumph. That triumph wasn't born from talent, but forged right here, in this room. He remembers the endless, grueling repetitions, the push-ups, the swings of a hammer, the relentless practice. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, he had drilled himself, preparing for a victory he now understood. Smoking his cigarette, Oshiro looks over the tools of his new trade. All the painstaking preparation, the weapons crafting, the training, it all finally feels like it has paid off. For the first time, he feels a sense of accomplishment. He glances back at the wall of politicians he once despised. But now, as he looks at their faces, the burning rage he once felt is gone. He feels nothing. The complex ideologies and hatred have been washed away. In their place, all that remains is a pure, simple pleasure of being alive. He questions his former self. Was assassination meant for me? He insists he wasn't like the powerless people who just complain on the internet. He was truly serious about his deadly mission. He recalls the grand, abstract ideals he was willing to die for. Save Japan. Save the people. Become a hero. Noblesse oblige. A mission to save the country from collapse. In his mind, All the filth of his political hatred, all the ideologies he had piled up, have been flushed away, completely vanished as he gets dressed in clean clothes, a symbolic rebirth. His grand political crusade is no longer his concern. With his purpose now crystal clear, he turns his attention to the only thing he has to worry about right now. The small, terrified girl, Yatsuba, huddled in the corner of his room. He approaches Yatsuba, his expression hardening with a new resolve. He clenches his fist, not in anger, but in a silent vow of protection. Yatsuba remains silent, withdrawn, hugging her knees to her chest. Oshiro observes her, his face softening as he takes in the girl's trauma. He sits down on the floor near her, trying to appear non-threatening. In a gentle voice, he asks her a simple question. "Did you eat?" Oshiro asks what she wants to eat, but Yatsuba says she isn't hungry. Her trauma then resurfaces as she begins to cry, terrified. Those guys, if they come again. She's haunted by the memory of the leering Yakuza, terrified they will take her, her mother, and her sibling you away again. The little girl trembles, consumed by her fear. Watching her, Oshiro's expression shifts from concern to grim determination. He gently rests his hand on her head, offering what comfort he can. With a voice full of regret for what she's endured, he says, "I'm so sorry." He pulls her into a protective embrace, making a solemn vow. "Everything's all right. I will protect all of you guys. Your siblings, your mother, and you as well, Yatsuba." He looks down at the tearful girl, his own eyes filled with an unbreakable resolve. "No matter who I have to face." His voice is absolute as he makes his final promise. "I will never lose." The scene then cuts away. 2 days later, a lone cat wanders down a quiet suburban street. The cat stops in the middle of the road, its attention caught by an approaching car. It stares, frozen in the path of the vehicle. The car barrels forward without any attempt to slow down, running the cat over. Behind the wheel is one of the bald Yakuza members from the earlier crime scene. The 2 Yakuza from the crime scene get out of the car. To demonstrate their casual cruelty, one of them deliberately grinds his shoe into the body of the cat they just killed. One of the men holds up his phone. On the screen is a detailed profile of Yatsuba Yamamoto, complete with her photo and address, matching the apartment building behind them. They've found her. The chapter ends. The scene opens with Oshiro Shintaro, who stands solemnly for a moment before starting to throw away his belongings, clearing out his apartment. With a heavy heart, Oshiro gets rid of almost everything he owns. The arrangements to leave are nearly complete, a necessary step for him to disappear. His neighbor Ayumu, the mother of the children next door, explodes with rage and desperation. She screams, questioning why they have to move, insisting it has nothing to do with her and that they have nowhere else to go. She angrily dismisses the idea of returning to her parents' home, revealing a past with an abusive, drunken father. Her children stand behind her, their faces filled with fear and confusion as they learn the Yakuza are after them. Furious and feeling trapped, Ayumu gives Oshiro the middle finger, warning him not to drag her family into his mess and that he's dead if the Yakuza come for them. 2 days pass. Oshiro stands alone in the hallway, his face etched with frustration. He couldn't get through to Ayumu at all. He stands in a designated smoking area, wrestling with his thoughts, wondering if he should tell her he killed the Yakuza members. Just then, 2 men in suits, clearly Yakuza, walk into view, marking the beginning of Chapter 3 visitors. The Yakuza enforcer Soji gets the attention of his boss, Aniki, pointing something out as they walk past the garbage collection spot. Soji points to the stacks of newspapers Oshiro had thrown out, which are covered in headlines about conspiracies, and calls to wake up. "Open your eyes." Aniki laughs it off, assuming some conspiracy theorist just came to their senses and got rid of the papers. They continue walking towards the apartment building. The 2 Yakuza members walk towards the entrance of the apartment building, dismissing the discarded newspapers as irrelevant to their lives or politics, and proceed to press the button for one of the apartments. Ayumu opens her door, enraged to find 2 strange men at her doorstep so early in the morning. The Yakuza don't waste a second. Aniki violently grabs Ayumu by her hair, silencing her protests as they begin to force their way into her home. The door closes with a thud as Aniki drags the struggling Ayumu inside, telling her they need to have a talk. From a nearby stairwell, Oshiro hears the door slam shut. He immediately realizes something is wrong and rushes towards the sound, his face filled with shock and dread. Oshiro panics, running through his own apartment with a sense of urgency, repeating to himself that this is bad, very bad. He enters a room to find a terrified Yatsuba, who has crawled through a hole in the wall. Crying, she tells him that the old man and his accomplice are here. Oshiro looks at a wall where he has pinned photos of various politicians, his intended targets, now splattered with what appears to be blood or ink. Overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, Oshiro starts coughing, the stress of the situation clearly getting to him. Yatsuba cries out in terror, believing the Yakuza will kill her mother. Hearing this, Oshiro tells her to hide in the bathroom as he quickly grabs a sharp, dart-like weapon from his shelf. As Yatsuba scrambles into the bathroom for safety, Oshiro turns to her with a look of fierce determination, promising that he will protect her. Oshiro bursts through the hole in the wall connecting their apartments, throwing a dart-like object. He lunges into the next room, ready to fight, catching the Yakuza by surprise. The horrifying scene is revealed. Aniki holds Ayumu hostage with her mouth covered, while Soji has one of her children in a chokehold. Oshiro stands before them, bloodied but defiant, holding a knife ready to attack. Aniki holds Ayumu while his subordinate, Soji, restrains one of the children. Soji looks at the bloodied Oshiro and contemptuously asks, "Who are you?" The child that Soji had grabbed now lies on the floor, whimpering in pain. This sight focuses Oshiro's attention, his eyes locking onto the two intruders with cold, determined fury. Oshiro stands in the middle of the chaotic room, facing the two Yakuza. Ayumu and her child are on the floor, terrified but unharmed for the moment. From the other room, another child calls out for Ayumu, asking if she's okay. But the child on the floor just whimpers to his mother that he's hurt, drawing Oshiro's attention to the two Yakuza responsible. Seeing the child in pain ignites a furious rage in Oshiro. He seethes, wondering why it's always the innocent children who have to suffer. Aniki's eyes widen with a sinister smile as he recognizes Oshiro, wondering if this is the man who killed 8 of their members. Fueled by righteous fury, Oshiro lunges forward with his knife, his mind consumed by a single thought. He will kill both of them. The two Yakuza ready themselves, getting into a fighting stance. Oshiro clutches his knife, trying to convince himself that he'll win, that he will definitely kill them. Soji questions Oshiro's confidence, asking if he plans to take them on with his bare hands. Oshiro retorts that he's already killed 8 people. Oshiro swings his knife, but Soji easily dodges the attack, showing his experience in close-quarters combat. As Oshiro attacks, he leaves himself wide open. Aniki smashes a bottle over his head, and Soji simultaneously lands a hard punch, disorienting him completely. The fight turns against him in an instant. Aniki lands a brutal kick, and Oshiro is hit with a powerful punch to the face, stunned by the force of the blow. The two Yakuza coordinate their attack perfectly. As Oshiro tries to defend himself with a knife, they overwhelm him with a flurry of kicks and punches. Oshiro cries out in pain as he tries to shield himself, but the onslaught is too much. He's completely outmatched. A final, powerful punch sends Oshiro flying backwards. He loses his grip on the knife, his body slumping as he questions what's wrong with him. The Yakuza are perplexed by how weak he is in a direct fight. On the ground, Oshiro struggles to understand what's happening to him, desperately trying to make his body move. As another punch lands, shattering his defenses, a grim realization dawns on Oshiro. He finally understands why he can't fight back effectively. The brutal reality hits him. He never considered this scenario, a 2-on-1 fight in hand-to-hand combat. His mind flashes back to his fantasies of stabbing and shooting defenseless politicians. He never once thought about what it would be like to fight trained killers with his bare hands. Aniki grabs the beaten Oshiro by the neck, wondering aloud how this old man managed to kill 8 of their guys. Soji speculates that he must have just caught them off guard. As he's being choked, Oshiro finally gets it. He was only ever prepared for assassinations through surprise attacks. In the background, Ayumu holds her terrified children, watching helplessly. Aniki holds up his phone, sneering at the defeated Oshiro. He declares that, after all, Oshiro really is just an amateur. Aniki confirms that Oshiro was the one who killed the 8 Yakuza members. He offers a sarcastic compliment, saying Oshiro deserves it, while the family watches in terror. However, Aniki continues his monologue, taking a selfie with the captured Oshiro. He tells him it's over, that he's far from being able to beat pros like them. Aniki sends the photos from his phone, stating that while there are tons of pros in the world, there are even more amateurs like Oshiro. Aniki continues his condescending lecture, musing that amateurs sometimes carelessly try to imitate professionals, picking fights they are destined to lose. He explains that they inevitably bite off more than they can chew, only to end up being hunted down. With a final, pitying look, he tells Oshiro that his wannabe assassin game ends here. But something in Oshiro snaps. His eyes burn with defiance as he tells Aniki that he doesn't want to be lumped in with scum like them. He declares that he was seriously, truly committed to making the world a better place. He insists that his principles haven't changed. Unlike them, who kill for money, he only killed scum. In the background, Ayumu shields her terrified children. Aniki mockingly asks if Oshiro wants to give him his personal info, offering to share it with all his rotten friends. With a surge of adrenaline, Oshiro pulls at his jacket and shouts his name for all to hear. Ojiro Shintaro, the hero who will save this nation. A strange calm comes over Oshiro. He looks Aniki in the eye and tells him, "You guys should have shot me when you had the chance." Aniki is momentarily confused by Oshiro's sudden shift in demeanor. Soji notices Oshiro is acting strangely and asks Aniki if he can finish the job. But Aniki, seeing something amiss, tells him to wait. Aniki's eyes lock onto a string hanging from Oshiro's zipper. He begins to realize that this man is not just some dumb amateur. With a cold stare, Oshiro asks the Yakuza if they want him to teach them what real determination is. Oshiro rips open his hoodie to reveal a vest strapped to his chest. He declares that the string is the switch for a suicide bomber jacket. Aniki's bravado vanishes, replaced by sheer panic. He glances around and sees what looks like explosives packed and ready. Aniki's eyes dart to the packages strapped to Oshiro's chest. They're just books. But the bluff is too convincing. Terror grips him as he screams at Soji to get away. The Yakuza boss, completely terrified, shoves Oshiro forward, screaming that the man is a terrorist. Oshiro pulls the ring on the string, bidding them farewell. From the bathroom, Yatsuba peeks out, her face filled with fear. Yatsuba calls out to the old man. The scene shatters, revealing Ayumu on the floor, now holding a gun. The chapter comes to a shocking end. With a final pull, Oshiro says farewell. The title of the story, Amateur Vigilante, is displayed over the chaotic scene. Aniki recoils in horror, realizing what is about to happen as Oshiro once again declares his name. In a flashback, Oshiro reveals his thought process. He admits he was naive and purposely added a time lag to the jacket's detonator. The time lag was 3 seconds. In his fantasies, after he'd shoot a politician, the guards would rush to arrest him. Those 3 seconds were the time he calculated he would need to escape the ensuing explosion. He reflects on his own hypocrisy. He thought he didn't want to hurt civilians, but realized the only thing a murderer truly leaves behind is their own hypocrisy. He realizes that this very hypocrisy, his flawed and contradictory nature, is what gave him a way out of this desperate situation. A digital countdown appears, 3 seconds. As the timer begins, sheer terror takes over. The Yakuza scramble to get away from the blast zone, their professional demeanor completely shattered. The timer hits 2 seconds. As the Yakuza desperately flee, Oshiro lunges forward, shielding his body for the feigned explosion. But in the chaos, another, more decisive action is quietly taking place. But before the countdown can finish, Ayumu, who had picked up one of the Yakuza's dropped guns, takes aim. Soji turns just in time to see her pointing the weapon at his boss. The timer hits 1 second. Yatsuba watches from the bathroom as Oshiro lunges. But it's not a bomb that goes off. It's the crack of a gunshot fired by Ayumu, who sits on the floor irresolute. The bullet finds its mark, blowing Aniki's face apart in a gruesome explosion of blood and bone. Aniki's lifeless body collapses to the floor as Soji watches in stunned horror. Oshiro, his hoodie now off, clicks his tongue in annoyance as he realizes the bomb was just books. He looks down at Aniki's body, a grim understanding on his face. A weary, blood-stained smile creeps across Oshiro's face. He survived. This is bad, isn't it? He mutters to himself. After all, I still can't die. Soji, snapping out of his shock, remembers a time he was relaxing at home. But the present horror brings him back, and he stares at the gun in his hand, his mind racing. Enraged and panicked, Soji opens fire, screaming his own name as he wildly shoots at Oshiro. But now the tables have turned. Oshiro, shirtless and on his home turf, feels a surge of confidence. This time, he knows, he will definitely win this fight. Soji screams, pointing his gun, but his target is clear. Oshiro remembers the countless hours he spent training in this very room, his walls covered with the faces of politicians he planned to assassinate. With newfound determination, Oshiro declares, "This is my domain." Before Soji can get a clear shot, Oshiro expertly throws a knife, disarming the Yakuza with pinpoint accuracy. Soji stares in disbelief as his guns clatter to the floor, his mouth bloody and his confidence shattered. Oshiro isn't finished. He throws another dart, pinning the terrified Soji to the wall by his clothes. The fight is over. Yatsuba emerges from the hole in the wall, calling out to Oshiro. Exhausted and covered in bruises, he turns to her, his body aching. Despite his injuries, Oshiro gives Yatsuba a thumbs up. The old man won. He reassures her with a weak smile. The family surveys the gruesome aftermath. 2 dead Yakuza lie in their small apartment. Ayumu and her children stare in shock, while Yatsuba watches from the side, trembling. But Soji isn't done. He pulls a mask over his face, his expression turning cold. "I knew it," he snarls. "After all, you are just an amateur." Soji screams, pulling out a second gun with a silencer and pointing it directly at Oshiro. But just as he's about to fire, another shot rings out, and Soji is thrown back by the impact. The scene freezes on Soji pointing his gun, Oshiro's look of surprise, and Yatsuba's terrified face as the second fatal shot is fired. The bullet tears through Soji's head, killing him instantly, just as he was about to execute Oshiro. Soji's body falls beside his bosses, his plan for revenge cut short. Ayumu stands over them, the gun still in her hand. The room falls into a deafening silence. The last Yakuza's eyes are frozen in the shock of death as Oshiro looks on, slowly processing the sudden, violent end to the confrontation. Ayumu stands over the carnage, the gun still gripped tightly in her hands. Her terrified children cling to her, their gazes fixed not on the dead bodies, but on their mother, who has been pushed far beyond her limit to protect them. Ayumu's hands tremble as she holds the gun. Her children watch stunned as their mother, covered in shadows, mutters to herself, "Ugh, this is bad." The adrenaline fades, leaving only the horrifying reality of her actions. In the silent aftermath, Ayumu kneels beside the bodies, the gun on the floor. Oshiro, bruised but alive, stands with Yatsuba clinging to his side. The grim truth settles in as Ayumu voices their new, desperate reality. "We really have to move out now." From a car driving through the city at night, a voice yells out, trying to quell a fight that has broken out within the vehicle. Inside, we see the driver, Oshiro Shintaro, and his passenger, Marisa Yamamoto, grabbing a quick meal while a chaotic scene unfolds with multiple children in the back. The chaos is coming from the back seat, where Marisa's children are bickering and fighting over a fish burger, creating a ruckus. Marisa, completely overwhelmed, turns around and starts yelling at all of her children by name. Yugo, Nanami, Ayumu, Mia, and Yatsuba, trying to get them under control. Oshiro and Marisa share a moment of mutual exhaustion. Marisa sighs, noting that at least her 3 oldest children are already independent, which has made her life slightly easier. While eating his burger, Oshiro turns to Marissa and says something completely unexpected. He tells her that before he got involved with her, he thought she was a terrible parent. Marissa is taken aback by his bluntness, but he continues his thought, clarifying that he now thinks she's a great parent. Marissa seems surprised by the unexpected compliment, but Oshiro isn't finished. He adds that she's 10 times better than his own parents, but her luck with men is the worst he's ever seen. Marissa can't help but agree that it's true. Oshiro continues his strange attempt at bonding, adding that his own neighbor is a crazy old man, as if comparing their misfortunes. Looking back at her kids, Marissa laments that all of their fathers were also crazy. In her eyes, not a single one of them was a decent person. As the car continues down the road, Marissa looks out the back window with a heavy heart, thinking that these kids have no one else but her to rely on. Her determination flashes in her eyes as she remembers a dark moment from her past. A flashback shows her holding a gun, swearing she would do whatever it takes to raise her children, even if it meant shooting a yakuza in the head. With that fierce resolve, she turns to Oshiro and makes a stunning proposal. She tells him that if he protects her kids, she would even become his woman. Oshiro is completely flustered by her offer. He stammers, trying to make it clear that he wasn't thinking about anything like that. Marissa seems amused by his reaction, calling him arrogant, but admitting that his protective nature is a good quality. She insists they exchange contact information, just for emergencies, while teasing that he probably doesn't have any other girl's contacts anyway. They exchange numbers, and Oshiro saves her contact as Marissa Yamamoto. He glances at the new contact on his phone while continuing to eat his burger. Oshiro reflects on the strange outcome of his recent battles. What did he get from all that fighting? The contact information of a mother of 8. The scene changes. The Yamamoto family has found a temporary safe haven, hiding out in a guest house in Hokkaido owned by Marissa's older brother. However, Oshiro announces that he will not be joining them. He's staying behind. As Marissa and her children stand by the car, ready to go into hiding, she looks at Oshiro with concern. She knew he wasn't coming, but she still has to ask, is he really going to fight those guys alone? Oshiro just smirks, giving a cryptic and nonchalant reply. He says that what he's about to do is a lot easier than overthrowing the government. The children wave goodbye to Oshiro. He tells Yatsuba to take care, and she wishes him farewell in return. As he walks away, Oshiro admits to himself that saying goodbye was harder than he expected. He realizes what this feeling is. This is what it feels like to part ways with someone. In the distance, Yatsuba just stands and watches him go. He looks back, his expression hardening as he thinks about the kids' past. All of their fathers walked out on them. He wonders if they've grown used to this kind of abandonment. From his perspective, he watches Yatsuba standing there, looking downcast. He concludes that yes, they've probably gotten used to the pain of never seeing people again. But something inside him snaps. Unwilling to accept that conclusion, he runs back in a sudden burst of emotion. He scoops Yatsuba up into his arms, shocking everyone as he yells at her, telling her not to get used to it. As Yatsuba looks on in shock, Oshiro yells with desperate passion. He tells her not to get used to parting ways, because that will only make her feel lonely. Getting used to this life of abandonment, he warns, will make her feel even lonelier. Holding her gently, he makes a solemn promise. He tells her that this old man will definitely come back, and that he won't let her feel scared ever again. He vows to protect them all, no matter what. He sets her down and wipes her tears, promising her that everything will be okay. With his promise made, he turns and walks away for the final time as the family watches. From a nearby balcony, Marissa holds a crying Yatsuba, covering her eyes from the sight of Oshiro's departure. As they watch him go, Marissa whispers that they will wait for him. The scene cuts abruptly to a crowd of men in suits. The focus is now on a speech being given by Mito Taisher, the leader of the Neon Koden Party and the Prime Minister of Japan. On television screens across the country, Prime Minister Mito Taisher begins his address to the citizens of Japan. He speaks of the nation facing an unprecedented crisis, listing disasters, economic recession, inequality, and rising crime rates. Over a sprawling view of the city, he vows to stop this crisis with his body and soul. His speech continues, promising that even in these difficult times, the government will not abandon anyone. These words are spoken over a shot of a desolate, abandoned warehouse by the docks. As the Prime Minister preaches about self-reliance and asks the people to fight alongside him, the scene cuts to Oshiro at the same abandoned warehouse, preparing to mix a bag of cement. The horrifying reality of Oshiro's actions is revealed. He isn't just mixing cement. He's pouring it over the severed head of the Yakuza member he killed, which he has placed in a barrel. As the Prime Minister's call to fight echoes, Oshiro kicks the heavy barrel into the dark water, disposing of the evidence. This is his way of fighting back. A wide, lonely shot of the industrial port is shown, with the single word "fight" hanging in the air, contrasting the scale of the nation's problems with Oshiro's solitary war. The word "fight" follows Oshiro as he navigates the maze of shipping containers, eventually entering one that serves as his hidden base of operations. Inside, his eyes burn with a cold fire. He points a pistol forward, his resolve hardened, and his personal fight about to get even more intense. It's revealed what Oshiro is aiming at. A man tied to a chair with a paper bag over his head, a target drawn on it. He is using a live human for target practice, marking the end of the first volume. The story continues with Chapter 6, titled Abandoned Port, as Oshiro takes aim in his dark hideout. A wider view shows the scene inside the shipping container. Oshiro stands ready to fire at his captive, who is positioned in front of a hand-drawn diagram on the wall. The captive Yakuza member begins to scream in terror from underneath the bag, covering his head. With cold determination, Oshiro looks down the sights of his pistol, his finger on the trigger. He mutters a single word: "Die." He pulls the trigger, but instead of a fatal gunshot, there's only a soft pop. He isn't using live ammunition for his practice. Oshiro continues to practice, firing multiple pellets from what appears to be an airsoft gun, which bounce harmlessly off the captive. Tears of frustration well up in his eyes. He lowers the gun, muttering to himself that it doesn't feel like he's practiced nearly enough. He laments that it's not like he can practice with real ammo, acknowledging that the gun in his hand is not a toy. Fed up, Oshiro rips the bag from the captive's head. The enraged Yakuza, the brother of the man Oshiro killed, screams at him, daring him to hand over the gun so he can train him properly. Oshiro calmly replies that there's no way he'd do that, since the man would obviously shoot him. The captive screams back with manic intensity, "Well, of course." The scene pans out to the container yard at night, as the captive's angry thoughts echo. He rages about being locked up for days, and being used for target practice. His anger is fueled by grief. He screams at Oshiro, enraged that his brother was sunk in the bay, and repeatedly vows to kill him. Tired of the screaming, Oshiro calmly presses a taser to the captive's chest, silencing him with a jolt of electricity. As the captive recovers, Oshiro coldly tells him to shut up. He throws the man's own worldview back at him, stating that they are in a kill-or-be-killed situation, the philosophy of a professional. The captive scoffs at the word philosophy, calling it something that idiots study. He mocks Oshiro for being a lowlife who believes in conspiracy theories. Oshiro seems genuinely surprised to be called a conspiracy theorist. The captive presses his verbal attack, pointing a finger and accusing him of being a terrorist. The captive lays out his evidence. Oshiro's room smells of gunpowder. He has homemade guns, political posters on the walls, and stacks of ridiculous books. In his eyes, it all adds up to one thing: terrorist. He continues to taunt Oshiro, saying he doesn't know the specific reason for targeting politicians, but bets he just fell for some theory he found online. Oshiro looks down, considering the captive's words for a moment, before looking up with a neutral expression and dismissing it all. "It does not matter," he says. He then walks to the evidence board on his wall. Pointing to the various documents and photos, he reveals his true focus. "Right now, my objective is the Kokubu group." Oshiro explains that he has an overwhelming amount of evidence, including human trafficking documents from the Yakuza office and data from a phone. He then points to the captive's own file, finally revealing his name, Sarama Souchi. With his face cast in shadow and his eyes burning with intensity, Oshiro declares that destroying the Kokubu group is his mission now. Sarama Souchi starts to laugh, mocking Oshiro's grand plan. Destroy? And how do you plan to do that? He asks if Oshiro plans a shooting or a massacre, warning him that he's the one who will get the death penalty. Oshiro calmly scratches his head, completely unconcerned. He states that he doesn't care about the death penalty, and because he can't trust the police or the media, he has to take matters into his own hands. Sarama asks what he's going to do then. Oshiro holds up a smartphone and reveals his 21st century solution. I'll spread the evidence online. Sarama is stunned into silence as Oshiro shows him a new, anonymous social media account he has created specifically for this purpose. Oshiro scrolls through his phone. He admits that right now, he doesn't have many connections or followers, but he's confident that it's just a matter of time. He then reveals the full scope of his digital attack. He has already created a thread on an anonymous forum with tons of pictures, and he has sent direct messages to 50 different influencers to get the word out. Standing over his makeshift desk, Oshiro tells Sarama to give up. He's certain that once the masses get a hold of this information, the Kokubu group is finished. All he has to do now, Oshiro explains, is lie low until the rumors spread. As he waits, he plans to stay there and make Sarama confess. He calmly lights a cigarette. In a bizarre power move, Oshiro casually blows a cloud of smoke directly into his captive's face. Sarama Souchi just glares back, his face shrouded in the smoke, completely unfazed by the gesture. The two enemies stare at each other. Sarama then asks if Oshiro smokes American spirits. Oshiro replies that he smokes Mevius, and Sarama asks him for one, reasoning that he's owed that much since Oshiro killed his brother. A strange truce forms as Oshiro gives his captive a cigarette. The two men, a vigilante and a yakuza, smoke together in the tense silence of the container, a moment of calm before the storm. As they smoke, Oshiro glances toward his laptop and radio setup. He breaks the silence, not with a threat, but with a strange, almost nervous question for Sarama. Are you feeling relieved? Oshiro suddenly looks worried. He mutters that this place shouldn't be traceable because he turned off his phone's location services. But then, a horrifying possibility dawns on him as he looks at his evidence board. Could someone have found his location from the pictures he uploaded? Before he can fully process the thought, the sound of multiple heavy boots can be heard running just outside the container. His worst fear is confirmed. A squad of heavily armed yakuza are swarming the container yard. A narration box explains his fatal mistake. Photos taken on smartphones have embedded geotags, while major social media platforms automatically remove that data. The anonymous forums he used do not. Oshiro stands in stunned silence, the full weight of his amateur mistake crashing down on him. His own captive, Sarama Souchi, looks at him with contempt and delivers the final verdict on his failed plan. Dumbass.
The night is dark at the shipping yard as heavily armed forces, clad in black and wearing balaclavas, swarm the area. They move with precision between the stacks of containers, launching a surprise attack. Inside one of the containers, Oshiro Shintaro peeks through a crack in the door. He assesses the situation grimly, noting they're trapped by about 20 men, with potentially more hiding. Behind him, his companion Sarama has already given up, stating that it's game over. Sarama, the bald man with distinctive tattoos on his head, calmly lights a cigarette. He tells Oshiro there's nothing they can do. The infamous Kokubu clan has sent their soldiers after them, and their only option is to surrender and beg for their lives. Oshiro acknowledges the situation is bad, but surprisingly, he feels calm, calmer than he expected. He realizes why he's so composed. A montage of his past violent encounters flashes through his mind. He's grown accustomed to life-or-death situations, and the constant danger has sharpened him. Despite the overwhelming odds and the heavily armed soldiers outside, Oshiro's resolve hardens. From his hiding place, he knows there's always a way to win. With a look of intense determination, Oshiro pulls a beanie over his head. This isn't the end. For him, The game is just beginning as he prepares for a counteroffensive. Oshiro reveals that being found was part of his plan all along, as it prevented them from searching for the kids he was protecting. Sarama, sitting by the desk, is incredulous, thinking Oshiro is dumb for letting them get cornered, noting the enemy arrived 10 times faster than expected. Oshiro lifts the lid off a large cardboard box, revealing that his battle preparations are complete. The box is filled with an arsenal of makeshift weapons. While Sarama watches in disbelief, Oshiro begins gearing up. He's made enough weapons and has trained extensively. His only regret is not having had time to sharpen his shooting skills, but he confidently states he'll make it work. Sarama is baffled by Oshiro's calm demeanor and asks why the hell he's laughing in such a dire situation. Oshiro, with his back to him, simply states that he is being tested. Oshiro turns, brandishing a massive, 4-barreled handmade shotgun. A predatory grin spreads across his face as he declares that this is just a test, and he can take them all down. As he walks towards the door, Oshiro monologues internally, feeling that justice, fate, and the world are all testing him. But instead of fear, he feels a thrill. Sarama can only stare, questioning what kind of test this could possibly be. With a slight, almost gentle smile, Oshiro compares the feeling to a major league player stepping into the batter's box. To him, Sarama is just a guest here, a spectator to the main event. Sarama watches Oshiro, realizing the man is even crazier than he initially thought, and a strange part of him is glad. Suddenly, Oshiro fires his weapon right past Sarama's head, the loud clang echoing in the small space. Sarama grimaces, thinking from his experience, guys like Oshiro who get high on adrenaline and lose touch with reality are the first to die. He believes determination alone won't change their fate. Outside, the Kokubu agents have the container surrounded. Their leader is confident, stating there are about 30 of them, all armed with assault rifles. They believe there is no escape. It's checkmate. Their assessment is simple and brutal. The moment those doors open, the target inside will be riddled with bullets and die instantly. Sarama seems to resign himself to his fate. He looks up, whispering a message to someone named Soji, saying he's finally sending this trash to him, and that he will follow along soon after. He accepts his death. Oshiro turns to Sarama, a smirk on his face. He tells Sarama that he's benched for today's game and pointedly asks if he's going to help or not. Sarama starts to shout in protest, but Oshiro quickly clamps a hand over his mouth, silencing him. He urgently tells the idiot to not be loud, or their enemies will know they're still in there. Outside, the soldiers notice something strange. Several articles of clothing, t-shirts, socks, and gloves are hanging on the container door. One of them realizes with a start that it's already too late. In reality, their plan was already compromised. The Kokubu Intelligence Division had managed to trace at least 250 of Oshiro's online posts, narrowing his location down to a precise 3-meter radius, leading them right to this spot. Seeing the decoy clothesline, the team leader wastes no time and gives the signal to breach. He pulls the pin on a powerful breaching charge, ready to blow the container open. A soldier rushes forward to place the charge, but as he gets closer, he spots a motionless figure inside. A decoy. Just as they realize they've been duped, Oshiro, hidden from view, gives a sharp hand gesture, signaling the start of his own explosive surprise. The breaching charge detonates with a massive explosion, tearing a hole in the side of the shipping container. The blast echoes through the yard, leaving Sarama stunned and confused. He looks around wildly, realizing in his shock that Oshiro is nowhere to be seen. Without hesitation, a squad of Kokubu agents storms through the newly created opening, their weapons raised as they prepare to neutralize their target. The agents open fire, unleashing a hail of bullets into the container. They toss in a flashbang, expecting to overwhelm their opponent and fill the decoy with lead. Through the smoke, the lead agent sees their handiwork. A makeshift dummy, riddled with bullet holes and marked with a painted target. They've been tricked. The agents cautiously advance, guns still raised. As one gets closer, he confirms their fears. Their target wasn't a person, but a crudely made scarecrow. The room is declared clear. There's nobody inside, only traces that someone had been there, like a workout bench and some weights. The agents are baffled, wondering if and how their target escaped. More agents pour into the empty container, questioning how their target could have possibly vanished. At that moment, a new sound emerges. A small, cylindrical object rolls out from the container directly above them. Not just one, but several of the makeshift pipe bombs roll ominously along the roof of the lower container. The agents outside see the pipe bombs rolling down from the upper container, finally realizing their target was never in the container they breached. He was above them the whole time. Meanwhile, Sarama looks on in utter amazement at Oshiro's plan unfolding. Peeking through a small opening, Oshiro confirms his vantage point was perfect, calling the agents below amazing for falling into his trap. One of the agents on the ground looks up in horror, realizing their fatal mistake. He screams at his comrades that their target is in a different position and that they need to run. But it's too late. The pipe bombs detonate, and the container below erupts in a violent explosion, catching the agents completely by surprise as the chapter comes to an end. The force of the explosion sends the Kokubu agents flying, a geyser of fire and shrapnel consuming the narrow space between the containers. An agent is thrown from the top of the container by the blast, marking the beginning of a new chapter, surpassing expectations. In the chaotic aftermath, an agent gets the drop on Sarama, holding him at gunpoint. But from above, Oshiro orders Sarama to take them out, tossing him a handgun and forcing him into the fight. Sarama screams Oshiro's name in a panic as he watches his supposed ally leap away, abandoning him to face the enemy alone. Left with no other choice, Sarama scrambles for the gun, his moment of hesitation disappearing as he prepares to fight for his life. Cornered and fueled by adrenaline, Sarama lets out a furious scream, declaring he'll kill the agents who now have him completely surrounded. His bravado quickly fades. With agents closing in, Sarama holds up his hands and the gun, desperately pleading for them to wait. He frantically shouts that he is Sarama and they are not supposed to kill him. His plea is ignored as an agent tackles him to the ground. Annoyed, Sarama calls the agent a dumbass for not recognizing him. While being pinned down, Sarama continues to scream, trying to tell the agents that the one they are supposed to kill is up there. He directs their attention upwards, selling out Oshiro's position on the staircase. Oshiro looks down, his plan having worked perfectly. With the agents below distracted by Sarama, Oshiro, perched on the edge of a container, takes aim with his multi-barreled weapon, preparing to unleash his next surprise. He fires a single, non-lethal projectile that splatters against an agent's mask. The strange attack doesn't injure him, but it leaves both the agent and his partner completely bewildered, unsure of what they're facing. Oshiro fires a volley of his strange projectiles, striking the agents with force and knocking them off balance as Sarama is being subdued. His weapon now empty, Oshiro tosses it aside and flees, drawing the agents after him. Meanwhile, Sarama fumbles with the gun Oshiro gave him, accidentally discharging it in a panic. A confident, almost unhinged smile spreads across Oshiro's face. Everything is going exactly as he expected. As he vaults over shipping pallets with agents in hot pursuit, he muses to himself that he's finally starting to understand the secret of fighting. He realizes that the agents' greatest strength is also their weakness. When the highly trained squad splits up to chase him in different directions, their coordination drops significantly, and in that moment they become vulnerable. He leaps between containers, luring two agents into a narrow passage. He notes that their reaction time is too slow, and he's ready to spring his trap. He uses a bluff, aiming his now empty weapon at the pursuing agents and shouting, "Here, attack!" This momentary distraction is the opening he needs. The agents fall for the feint. As another squad spots Oshiro, they open fire, but their panicked comrades are caught in the crossfire. The team's lethal coordination has completely broken down. Oshiro reflects on how much he struggled against the two Sarama brothers. It was their perfect coordination that made them so difficult to defeat. He knows he has to break that coordination here as well. He recalls them as two massive, strong guys, perfectly in sync, coming at him with 100% precision. As he continues to run along the container tops, he prepares his next move. Against perfectly coordinated opponents, the odds of winning are low. But against this now scattered group, he tosses several glass bottles down into the alley between the containers. As the agents below are distracted by the shattering bottles, Oshiro lands silently on the roof of a container right above them, armed with an aerosol can. He thinks to himself that if he can manage to create even just a small opening, he leaps down from the container directly into the middle of the unsuspecting agents. He can fully exploit it. He lands among them, knife already in hand, and brutally stabs an agent in the neck before they can react. Oshiro pauses to take a tally of the fight. He's killed 12, Sarama apparently shot 3, and he just got 1 himself. That's half of them down, with 15 left. He reflects on his talent for winning, no matter the odds. The remaining agents are in disarray, shouting for their captain and wondering where Oshiro has disappeared to. He states the essence of his superior killing ability, the power to exploit an opening. He continues his thought by striking unexpectedly. He is shown hiding in the shadows between containers, spray can in hand, waiting for the perfect moment for his next attack. A close-up shows his hand gripping the aerosol can, finger ready on the nozzle. Suddenly, another one of Oshiro's pre-placed bombs detonates, sending a massive explosion ripping through the container yard and catching the agents completely off guard. The agents are thrown by the powerful blast, screaming in pain and confusion as the narrow corridors of the container yard are filled with fire and smoke. The leader, Soji's brother, and his men are rocked by the explosion. He's stunned, his ears ringing, unable to comprehend the chaos unfolding around him. On the ground amidst the wreckage, the full scope of Oshiro's plan dawns on Soji's brother. He realizes Oshiro deceived him with a bag over his head, making him think they were on the first floor while he had planted weapons and bombs in every single container. The horrifying truth hits him. The entire harbor was his trap. He remembers his associate's words, that the culprit was some kind of genius murderer. It was all true. Defeated and in despair, he can only think of his brother, Soji, admitting to himself that he was far too optimistic in thinking this would be an easy fight. The chapter comes to a close as Oshiro stands over a defeated agent, his knife bloody. He coldly asks, "There are 10 left, right?" This man has exceeded every single one of their assumptions. The container yard is a maze of chaos. The Kokubu soldiers, caught in the blast, are disoriented and in pain, shouting in confusion as they try to understand where they are and how many of their own have survived. From above, Oshiro looks down on a Kokubu soldier. Before the man can react, Oshiro throws a knife with deadly precision, hitting his mark. Oshiro lands on the container, pulling his knife from the now-deceased soldier, blood splattering from the wound. He lets out a grunt, a bead of sweat on his face. The adrenaline of the fight courses through him, but there's a hint of weariness in his eyes. Oshiro stands over the body of his victim, another life taken. He looks down, a somber expression on his face as he contemplates the act. Surrounded by the bodies of the fallen Kokubu soldiers, Oshiro sits down amidst the carnage. He's exhausted, murmuring to himself, "I am really tired. This is the path of a rebel." He tries to process what just happened, thinking aloud about how many he killed, maybe 20 or 30. The smell of iron-like blood is overwhelming. He then lets out a hollow laugh, realizing that if you try hard enough, you can do anything. As he sits alone in the darkness, a familiar, unsettling feeling washes over him once again. It's the same sensation as when he attacked the Yakuza office, a dark mist wrapping around him. When he kills, his mind goes blank, the noise in his head disappears, and he can focus. But beyond that point of focus, there's nothing, just a void. He stares into the darkness, wondering if he is absolutely nothing, completely burned out. A brief, fleeting memory of a gentler time flashes through his mind, crouching down to help a small child. The contrast with his current reality makes him let out a small, bitter sound. Snapping back to the present, Oshiro gets up. His back is killing him, and he knows he should escape before the cops arrive. But a question lingers. Where the hell did Sarama go? He wonders if Sarama is hiding, waiting to take him out, or if he got caught in the crossfire and died. Holding his knife, Oshiro cautiously begins to search. He walks past the bodies, considering the possibility that Sarama might have escaped, though he doubts it. Suddenly, a figure stumbles into his path. It's Sarama, who seems to trip and fall right in front of him. But the fall was a feint. Sarama isn't playing dead. Oshiro realizes this was an attack, and he scrambles to escape as Sarama gives chase. Sarama lunges, revealing a large, demonic tattoo on his back as he swings at Oshiro. Just as Oshiro prepares for another fight, Sarama abruptly stops, throwing his hands in the air. "I give up," he declares, his attack forgotten. "I've got no chance of winning, so I surrender," Sarama says, hands still raised. Oshiro, knife at the ready, watches him with suspicion and disbelief. Sarama accepts his fate, but Oshiro is relentless. He tells him that since he came here to kill him, he should strip down and surrender properly if he doesn't want to die. Oshiro grabs Sarama, telling him to stand up and shut up. He doesn't like his hair and holds a knife to his back, pushing him against a container. Sarama tries to argue that attacking a surrendered soldier is a violation of international law, but Oshiro isn't listening. He yells that Sarama is a damn trash yakuza who came to kill him and should be ready to die. With his hands still in the air, Sarama calmly states, "Nah, I'm not a yakuza." Oshiro is taken aback. Sarama explains that his father is the boss of a group called Haikaimgumi, which is affiliated with Kokubu. He continues, explaining he has no interest in the yakuza life, but his parents' idea of raising him involved dragging him along to crime scenes. He admits that this is the first time anything like this has happened, looking at Oshiro and calling him something else. Seeing Oshiro's hardened expression, Sarama offers more information about the tattoo on his back. "This tattoo," he says, "they forced me to get it. It hurt like hell." Oshiro remains silent, processing the unbelievable story. Sarama continues, deadly serious, telling Oshiro his father took him to a tattoo artist when he was only 5. Oshiro is shocked, finding it hard to believe that this young man is truly the son of a yakuza boss. He turns his back to show the tattoo again, asking if Oshiro is even listening. He explains that as he grew up, his skin stretched, and the demon's face on his back became distorted. Oshiro, seemingly ignoring the story, simply tells him to walk. Sarama is confused by the sudden command. Oshiro clarifies, telling Sarama to just walk straight. If he can do that, Oshiro will trust him. Sarama, with his hands still up, thinks to himself that this is bad, that this old man Oshiro is dangerous. As they walk past a staircase, a surviving yakuza member, Soji's brother, suddenly appears. Sarama thinks Oshiro must have trust issues, but before he can finish the thought, Soji's brother lunges, aiming his rifle at Oshiro. With Sarama caught between them, Oshiro is forced to use the yakuza's own rifle to block the attack, turning the weapon back on its wielder. Oshiro slams Soji's brother to the ground, disarming him in one fluid motion. Sarama can only watch, stunned by the sudden violence, as the injured yakuza cries out his name in disbelief. Oshiro finishes subduing Soji's brother. He then turns to Sarama and says that because the yakuza didn't shoot him, he's now sure. He's sure of Sarama's story. Oshiro stands up, stating that he now believes the story about Sarama being the boss's son. Sarama looks on, wide-eyed and sweating, shocked that this was the test. Sarama looks at the downed yakuza leader, then at Oshiro, and mutters that he's glad he surrendered. The violent ordeal of Chapter 9 comes to an end. A new chapter begins, Bonds and Promises. The defeated yakuza leader, Genpei, lies on the ground, groaning in pain, as Oshiro and Sarama look down on him. Genpei admits that there was no way he could have shot Oshiro while Sarama was in the line of fire. His hesitation proved Sarama's importance, confirming his story to Oshiro. Lying by the water's edge, Genpei explains that he and his brother, Soji, both owed a debt to Sarama's father. Sarama, looking away, can only apologize for the situation he's put them in. Wiping blood from his mouth, Genpei acknowledges Oshiro's skill, calling him a genius when it comes to killing, but adds that there's still room for improvement. Genpei begins to list Oshiro's victims: 8 guys from the Fujiai Association, Soji, and the entire Kokubu team of 28 people, all killed in less than 2 weeks. He reveals the grim total, 37 people. And in just a few minutes, Genpei says it will be 38, including him. That's more than he and his brother killed combined. With a strange sense of calm, Genpei philosophizes that in this world, the more skilled you are, the more certain you are to meet a horrible death. He feels relieved, at ease, even as he faces his end. With a cold, steady gaze, Oshiro pronounces his sentence. He tells Genpei that he'll die in the worst way imaginable. A hollow, tragic, agonizing death that will go down in history. Genpei points a trembling finger at Oshiro, cursing him. He says a death far worse than his or Soji's awaits him, that there will be no salvation, and that he's looking forward to that moment. Oshiro, exhausted and blood-spattered, wordlessly points towards the pier, directing Genpei to his final destination. Genpei explains that it's right ahead, inside the storehouse by the pier. He breathes heavily, knowing what's coming. Oshiro reveals his final, cruel piece of justice. He tells Genpei that the spot he's pointing to is where he sank his brother, Soji, right into the water. A splash echoes as Genpei is sent over the edge, into the dark water below. His face is a mask of shock and horror. Genpei, struggling in the water, asks why. Why is Oshiro telling him this now at the very end? Oshiro looks down, his expression cold and distant. He tells Genpei that he feels it would be more fitting for him to die thinking about his brother, rather than about him. With that, he turns his back, leaving Genpei to his fate. Genpei glares from the pier, blood and water dripping down his face. Oshiro turns away as Sarama looks on, concerned. With his final breaths, Genpei tells Oshiro not to underestimate a pro. He speaks of the malice and the will to kill that come from the bonds of brotherhood, something Oshiro wouldn't understand. He promises to wait for him in hell, cursing his name, Shintaro. As the sun rises over the harbor, Oshiro and Sarama stand in silence. On the pier lies the now lifeless body of Genpei. Oshiro looks out at the water, his face unreadable, while Sarama glances at him, sensing a shift in his mood. A memory surfaces. Oshiro recalls coming to this same harbor for a day job about 20 years ago. The memory of the container yard overlays his current view. He remembers the past. The work was tough and he was exhausted from carrying pallets. He thought the place was trash, and the sticky sea breeze made his sweat feel awful. But then he saw it. As he stood on the pier, just like now, he saw the morning sun reflecting off the water. He remembers thinking it was strangely beautiful. The memory of his younger self, struck by that unexpected moment of beauty amidst the grime and hard labor, fills his mind. Back in the present, the bloody reality of the container yard starkly contrasts with the peaceful memory. Gunpei's body lies nearby as Oshiro stands lost in thought. Sarama watches Oshiro, whose back is now turned to him. Seeing his stillness, Sarama tentatively asks, "Are you crying?" Oshiro simply replies, "Don't worry." Sarama points at himself, trying to break the tension. "If anyone should be crying, it's me," he says. "Now quit standing around and let's go." Oshiro finally turns and agrees. As they walk away, Sarama picks up his jacket, groaning that he's tired of being a hostage. They decide to take the car they came in to get out of there. As Sarama puts his jacket on, Oshiro remarks that he seems pretty used to being a hostage. Sarama casually agrees, saying it's not like he has any way of escaping. Sarama explains that since he's the boss's son, it happened all the time when he was a kid. He recalls how the Samara brothers always saved him. A memory flashes of his past kidnappings, where a group of suited men, the Samara brothers, would come to his rescue. He remembers them as being really cool guys. But his tone turns somber. "But they're already gone," he tells Oshiro. Looking out at the van driving through the carnage, he says he's had enough of seeing dead bodies for one day. The van drives away from the port, leaving behind the chaos and destruction of Oshiro's battle with the Kokubu unit. With Sarama driving, he asks Oshiro where they should go from here. Oshiro, looking exhausted in the passenger seat, admits that he doesn't really have a plan. Sarama asks if he has a hideout or some allies to run to. Oshiro looks out the window at the road and bluntly states, "I have no allies. I'm alone." Sarama is stunned into silence. He can't believe it. "Wait. You really started a war with one of Japan's most heavily armed crime syndicates? All by yourself? Why the hell would you do that?" Oshiro looks ahead, his expression weary but resolute. He answers simply, "Because I made a promise." He elaborates, calling it the first promise he's ever made in his life. With fierce determination in his eyes, he vows, "Even if it kills me, I'll keep it." Sarama can only say, "Oh." As they drive down the open road, Sarama makes an unexpected offer. "Anyway, want to go to my place?" The chapter comes to an end, with the beginning of an unlikely alliance. In the bloody aftermath of a violent confrontation, Ojiro Shintaro zips up a body bag. Inside, the face of a Yakuza member he just killed is frozen in a silent scream, blood trickling from his mouth. The scene pulls back to reveal the scale of the carnage. In a desolate container yard, numerous body bags are lined up in neat rows, a testament to the brutal efficiency of one man's justice. The title of the story, Amateur Vigilante, is starkly displayed. The scene shifts. A mysterious man with blonde hair brings a bloodied and exhausted Ojiro to a secluded skyscraper. He introduces the building as his tower mansion, a secret hideout in the countryside. Wary and injured, Ojiro questions if it's an ambush, which the man denies. Inside the elevator, the blonde man explains that not even the Yakuza knows about this place, emphasizing his desire for secrecy. Ojiro remains on high alert, clutching a knife, his face a mask of suspicion and exhaustion. As they walk down a sterile hallway, the blonde man pleads with Ojiro not to hurt him. He unlocks a door, reluctantly admitting that he didn't even want to bring him here, cryptically mentioning his family is inside. The door opens to an unexpected sight. The apartment is filled with a sea of cats, all staring intently at the newcomers. Ojiro, still holding his knife, stands frozen at the threshold, completely taken aback. Ojiro is stunned into silence. Surrounded by dozens of pairs of unblinking feline eyes, the hardened vigilante, fresh from a massacre, looks utterly bewildered and out of his element. The blonde man casually greets his cats, calling them by name. He apologizes to them for bringing a bloodied old man home, while Ojiro internally questions the absurdity of the situation. A house full of cats. The man explains that every single one of the cats was once a stray he took in. As Ojiro processes this, one of the larger cats approaches him with a hostile hiss, guarding its territory. While the blonde man gets food for the cats in the kitchen, Ojiro, still on edge, gruffly tells a small cat trying to climb on his back to leave him alone. Despite the danger he's in, his focus is momentarily diverted by the animals. A small, black cat approaches Ojiro, looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Ojiro stares back, a moment of quiet connection forming between the weary killer and the curious animal. In a surprising turn, the tension in Ojiro finally breaks. He drops his knife and gently strokes the black cat. The blonde man watches this display of tenderness, a look of realization dawning on his face. Seeing Ojiro completely distracted and his guard down, the blonde man picks up a heavy bottle. He raises it, contemplating whether he can seize this opportunity to strike. However, he hesitates. "No, I can't," he thinks, realizing that Ojiro's mind and body were already at their absolute limit. The vigilante, finally letting go, affectionately nuzzles the small black cat that disarmed him. A flashback reveals the source of his exhaustion. For days on end, Ojiro had immersed himself in making guns and bombs, meticulously monitoring the movements of his target, Kokubu, with the intensity of someone working overtime for 14 days straight. On top of the grueling preparation, the stress from the immense fights had taken its toll. The narrative shows the aftermath. Ojiro finally collapses on the apartment floor from sheer exhaustion, the black cat sitting faithfully by his side. Time passes. The apartment is calm as the cats eat peacefully from their bowls. The blonde man is seen preparing more food, having seemingly taken on the role of a caretaker for both the cats and his unconscious guest. Ojiro wakes up to a new reality. He's shirtless and securely tied to a chair. Across the table, the blonde man casually eats a meal and wishes him a cheerful good morning. Struggling against his bonds, Ojiro can only stare in disbelief. The sheer absurdity of being tied up and greeted so casually makes him question his sanity. The blonde man, finding the situation hilarious, breaks into laughter. His captor begins to mock him relentlessly. A hitman taken down because he got distracted by cats? Seriously? He scoffs, laughing hysterically. Infuriated, Ojiro yells back, "Shut up! I'm not a hitman." The blonde man realizes this isn't some professional killer. It's something else entirely. The laughter stops. The blonde man's demeanor turns serious as he gets to the heart of the matter. Leaning forward, he asks the crucial question. "Anyway, who are you?" Stripped of his weapons and anonymity, the vigilante gives a simple, honest answer. He is Ojiro Shintaro, 39 years old. He claims to be just an ordinary guy with no connection to the powerful Kokubu, merely the neighbor of someone he was indebted to. The blonde man studies Ojiro, his mind racing. He finds it hard to believe that an ordinary guy like this could, or would, pick a fight with a dangerous figure like Kokubu. He presses further, asking the most important question, why? When Ojiro remains silent, the blonde man's expression darkens as he shifts to psychological warfare. He lays out a chilling threat, noting that while Ojiro is tied up, nothing is stopping him from breaking his own ropes and, right in front of Ojiro's eyes, torturing every single cat to death. Leaning in close, the man locks eyes with his captive, attempting to find a weakness. He poses a final, terrifying question, testing the resolve of the man who was just disarmed by a kitten's affection. What would you do? His aim, Genpei waits for an answer, but Ojiro's gaze is hard as steel. Challenging the threat, Ojiro asks with chilling calm, "Stop me?" Ojiro's internal monologue reveals his unwavering resolve. How strong is my opponent? Who am I? None of that matters. For him, the fight is not about ego or power, a sentiment that leaves Genpei sweating and speechless. Looking at the black cat, a symbol of the innocence Genpei protects, Ojiro finally explains his reason. If I have something to protect, my body moves on its own. That's my only reason. He looks directly at Genpei, forging an unexpected connection. I also picked up a stray, he says, referring to the child he saved. Do you understand? He's not just a killer. He's a protector, just like Genpei. Genpei is stunned into silence by Ojiro's heartfelt confession. He lowers his head, processing the fact that this brutal vigilante shares his core motivation. The threat of torturing the cats vanishes, replaced by a complex new understanding. But the moment of connection is shattered by Gunpei's laughter. He reverts to mockery to hide his discomfort, ridiculing Ojiro. You're turning 40 next year, right? Are you seriously going through your Chinibyo phase right now? He mutters to himself that Ojiro was the one who made him say it. Just as the tension is about to escalate again, a hand reaches for the door handle. Genpei shouts, "Wait!" trying to stop the person from entering. But it's too late. A young woman with a black bob and a choker, carrying groceries, walks in. She freezes, shocked, calling out his name. Genpei? What the hell are you doing? The woman, Tarachi Mitsuki, unloads a barrage of questions, looking from Genpei to the shirtless, tied-up Ojiro. Who's this guy? Where are his clothes? Why is he tied to a chair? Genpei, flustered, tries to explain he only met the old man a little while ago. Thinking fast, Genpei concocts a wild lie. He tells Mitsuki that Ojiro is the type of person who gets thrills from being tied up, implying he met him at a BDSM club. Ojiro and Mitsuki are both left speechless, staring in disbelief. To everyone's surprise, Mitsuki's expression brightens. With sparkling eyes, she completely misunderstands the situation and exclaims, "Oh, you made some friends. I'm glad." Mitsuki declares that having friends is a good thing, but cheerfully tells them to stop the bondage in front of the cats. Ojiro, utterly exasperated, pleads to be untied, insisting he's not excited at all, while the black cat calmly sits on his lap. The scene flashes back 13 years. A young, terrified Genpei is being forcibly held down as a man begins to give him a large, intricate back tattoo. The nauseating slurp sound repeats, suggesting he's being forced to drink something to endure the ordeal. Tears stream down young Genpei's face as he chokes down the foul liquid. The needle digs into his skin, beginning the painful process that marks the start of a new chapter, nauseous memory. A wider view reveals the grim setting. A group of Yakuza members, including Genpei's own brother, watch as the boy is permanently marked, inducting him into their violent world against his will. Gunpei's brother, a man with long, wavy hair, looks on coldly. He tells the tattoo artist it's fine, sadistically remarking to his little brother, "There's nothing worse than slurping mayo, right?" Referring to the agonizing pain of the needles stabbing his back 12 hours a day. Another high-ranking Yakuza member with a massive Oni tattoo tells young Genpei that if he endures the pain, he can become one of them. "We're brothers now," he says, sealing the boy's fate within the criminal organization. Back in the present, the memory has left its mark. Genpei holds his bowl, his face a mask of revulsion and trauma, the taste in his mouth bringing back the nauseous memory of his forced induction into the Yakuza. The traumatic memory was triggered by something simple. During a meal with Mitsuki, Genpei recoils in disgust, shouting that he doesn't want mayo in his salad. Mitsuki, startled, immediately apologizes. The domestic scene turns into a tense argument. Mitsuki defends herself, but Genpei is adamant, declaring that mayo is absolutely not allowed. Ojiro, now untied, sits between them, drinking juice and watching the spat unfold. In a swift, comical move, he takes Gunpei's unwanted salad and dumps it into his mouth. Mitsuki is furious at Ojiro's intervention, snapping that even the cat wouldn't eat this. Ojiro, with a mouthful of salad, calmly comments on their couple's fight. Genpei and Mitsuki shout in unison that they are not a couple. The scene then cuts to Ojiro, holding a coffee mug, reflecting that it has now been nearly 3 days since he came to Gunpei's hideout. Looking over at Genpei playing with a cat toy, Ojiro muses to himself that somehow he's actually gotten used to this bizarre, domestic life. The sheer surreality of his new life crystallizes in a single moment. Ojiro, a vigilante, sits at the table while his captor, Genpei, plays with cats and Mitsuki does yoga. He reflects on the absurd irony. He is the killer of Gunpei's Yakuza friends. Yet here he sits, an unassuming houseguest in their bizarre, peaceful home. This strange domestic peace is cemented when Mitsuki turns from her cooking. Treating Ojiro not as a threat but as a welcome guest, she kindly asks if there are any foods he can't eat, a simple act of care that brings her character into focus. Ojiro simply replies that he's glad she's not picky. In a quiet moment, Genpei explains that Mitsuki, despite her insistence on being a 17-year-old named Miki, is a very family-oriented person. Genpei adds that she loves cooking, taking care of the cats, and watching movies. As Ojiro watches her, he wonders why a kind, domestic kid like her would be living in the secret hideout of a Yakuza member, speculating that she might be a runaway. Genpei clarifies that their relationship isn't romantic and that he doesn't even know Mitsuki's real identity. He then shakes a cat treat, and the animals react with wide-eyed excitement. As the cats swarm him playfully, Gunpei's full identity is revealed. He is his aim Genpei, 19 years old, the second son of the leader of the Hisame Gumi, a subsidiary of the Akashiro Gumi, which is under the powerful Kokubu. Ojiro realizes the only reason Genpei didn't kill him is because Genpei truly hates the Yakuza. Having laid his cards on the table, Genpei holds a cat and looks at Ojiro, a new understanding between them. So, he begins, "What do you want to ask?" Ojiro pulls out his phone to check on the information he leaked about the Kokubu group. To his shock, he's met with a 404 not found error. He realizes with dawning horror that it's all being systematically erased. Genpei calmly explains that this is the work of Kokubu's elite system engineers. The invalid URL and page not found errors confirm that a professional team is scrubbing the internet of any trace of Ojiro's expose. Ojiro reveals he also tried messaging influencers and media outlets, but got zero replies. Genpei, unsurprised, states that the media is not an option, as the Kokubu group has people on the inside, ensuring their silence. Ojiro even tried to anonymously report the container incident to the police, the scene of his Yakuza massacre. Genpei just smiles knowingly and says, "Oh, that was already covered up." Genpei suggests that their best move now is to directly target the ones controlling the flow of information. He casually offers to make a list of members from a group like the Uchinagumi. Ojiro, seeing his opening, poses a shocking question. "Are you okay with me killing your dad?" Ojiro presses further, asking if that includes Ganpei's Anikis, his older brothers and seniors in the clan. Genpei turns away, a chilling smile on his face, and replies without hesitation, "That's okay. He deserves it." With his back turned, Genpei gives Ojiro his blessing to carry out the assassinations. "Well, I guess so. If you really can do it, then go ahead," he says, sealing their dark pact. He gives Ojiro complete freedom, stating coldly that he has no attachment to his family. "Do what you want." Ojiro watches him, stunned by the depth of his hatred for his own blood. Later, Mitsuki approaches Genpei with a peace offering, a salad made with no mayonnaise. She apologizes for their earlier fight, her face showing genuine remorse. Mitsuki timidly asks Ojiro if Genpei is still mad at her. Ojiro, casually eating, reassures her that he doesn't think so, but he can't help but notice the dark expression on her face. Ojiro reflects that Genpei doesn't have any reason to be angry with Mitsuki. He knows the look on Genpei's face isn't one of simple anger. As Genpei forces himself to eat the salad, Ojiro understands the truth. It is the face of someone haunted by their past. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the Hisame Gumi, the Yakuza family under Kokubu's control, a search is underway. 2 Yakuza members call out Ganpei's name, but the room is empty. In another room, a man with long, wavy blonde hair, Ganpei's brother, is obsessively searching for him, creepily sniffing his pillow and muttering about needing his corpse. Genpei's brother frantically searches the empty bed, his desperation turning into a deranged obsession as he buries his face in the sheets, inhaling the lingering scent. A single tear rolls down his cheek as he holds a strand of his younger brother's hair. His silent, sorrowful expression reveals a deep, twisted obsession, marking the end of the chapter. A new chapter begins, titled Night and Cats. The scene opens on Mitsuki, resting peacefully in bed, surrounded by sleeping cats. She reflects that she loves this quiet time of day more than any other. The cats are in blissful slumber, one stretched out on its back, another curled into a tight, purring ball. Mitsuki's thoughts drift as she lists the things she loves. The soft breathing of the cats, the way they stretch and roll over in their sleep, and how they suddenly dart around, full of energy. But her peaceful moment is abruptly shattered. A sudden, loud bang and clang echo from outside, jolting her from her reverie. Mitsuki is unsettled by the noise, remembering that whenever Genpei comes home, she always hears pained groaning from his room. She peers into his room, but he is fast asleep, exhausted from his traumatic memories. She wonders what could possibly be causing him so much anguish. Mitsuki reflects on Gunpei's mysterious nature. He never talks about his past. He just shows up with lifeless eyes, stays for a few days, and then disappears again. But this time was different. For the first time ever, he brought someone with him, Ojiro. As she thinks this, the loud banging and clanging sounds echo through the hallway again. Tonight, the groaning is even louder. Mitsuki cautiously peeks out of her room, trying to find the source of the disturbing sounds. The noise isn't coming from Genpei. It's coming from Ojiro's room. With a determined groan, he's awake and hard at work, forcefully bending a piece of metal. Mitsuki enters the room, asking what the noise is. She finds Ojiro surrounded by tools and scraps. An iron pipe, a spray can, pachinko balls, a knife, and wire. He frantically tries to hide his weapon-making supplies. Remembering Genpei's ridiculous lie from before, Mitsuki points and asks, "Are these BDSM tools?" Ojiro, seeing a perfect excuse, sweats and awkwardly agrees. Mitsuki seems to accept the explanation, but then she sniffs the air. "But it smells like gunpowder?" she asks. Ojiro freezes, realizing the bug spray he's using as a component is giving him away. Mitsuki, deciding not to press the issue, puts a finger to her lips. Okay, I won't ask anything else." But she then kneels, pleading with Ojiro, "Just try not to hurt Genpei. Okay?" As she looks at Ojiro's workbench, filled with makeshift weapon parts, she murmurs her thoughts. He might look scary, but he's actually really fragile. With the tension eased, Ojiro asks Mitsuki a direct question. "What kind of relationship do you two have, anyway?" Mitsuki, cuddling the black cat, begins to explain. She recounts her past. Half a year ago, after a fight with her parents, she ran away from home. She bounced from place to place until one snowy day, while feeding a stray cat on a park bench, she met Genpei. Genpei, seeing her connection with the cat, simply asked if she wanted to come with him. At the time, Mitsuki figured he was just another guy who lets people crash at his place, a common occurrence in her life on the streets. But then, Genpei brought her to the tower mansion. He told her she could stay, but with one condition. She had to take care of his cats. That was all he said before heading out. A few days later, he returned, looking totally exhausted, and collapsed. When he woke, all he did was thank her for watching over the cats. His simple gratitude was a stark contrast to what she expected. After that, he fell into a pattern. He would come home completely drained, sleep among the cats, and then disappear again. Crucially, not once did he ever try to lay a hand on her. Through the strange, quiet cycle, Mitsuki ended up settling in. Surrounded by the warmth of the cats and Gunpei's respectful distance, the hideout started to feel like her real home. She admits that since coming here, she started to enjoy the night. She explains that back home, every night was filled with the sound of her parents yelling at each other. But here, in this strange sanctuary, all she hears are the peaceful sounds of the cats. Her story is interrupted by the sound of Ojiro continuing his work. Her expression becomes serious and determined. "I don't know what Genpei's doing out there, or what's haunting him," she says, "but he cries every night." Looking at Ojiro, she makes her own vow. "I want to help stop that." Her loyalty to the boy who saved her is absolute. Ojiro finally understands the bond between them. Mitsuki wants to help Genpei because he helped her. He looks at this strange new ally, seeing the same protective instinct that drives him. "I get it," he says. The next morning, the domestic routine continues. Mitsuki walks towards the door carrying a pet carrier and announces, "Well, I'm heading out." Genpei and Ojiro look up, confused. "Mickey, where are you going?" Genpei asks. Mitsuki points to the black cat inside the carrier, reminding him about the medical checkup for its kidney disease. After she leaves, Genpei turns to Ojiro, anxiously asking, "Do you think she hates me?" Ojiro, showing a hint of his own attachment, tells him to be more grateful. He then asks, "By the way, what is its name?" "That black cat." Genpei simply answers, "Fincher." The scene cuts to Mitsuki walking through the countryside, carrying Fincher in his carrier, with the imposing tower mansion in the distance. After a long walk, Mitsuki arrives at the local animal hospital, a small building tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. She enters the seemingly empty clinic, announcing, "Excuse me, I'm Miss Tarachi. I'm here for Fincher's checkup." Her voice echoes in the silent room. The eerie silence is broken when a potted plant is knocked over. Mitsuki enters the examination room and is met with a horrifying sight. A man in scrubs lies on the floor, and standing over him is the menacing figure of Gunpei's brother. "You're finally here," he says with chilling satisfaction. The brother reveals his terrifyingly methodical plan. He collected cat hair from Genpei's room and ran genetic tests, finding over 30 matches. He traced their 15-digit ID numbers, managed by the Ministry of the Environment, and found a history of visits to this specific clinic. He knew that by staking it out, someone close to Genpei would eventually show up. Removing his face mask, Gunpei's brother looks down at the terrified Mitsuki. "Are you my brother's girlfriend?" he asks. In that moment, Mitsuki understands everything. This sadistic, obsessive man is what Genpei is truly afraid of. This marks the terrifying end of the chapter. The scene opens in an armory, filled with racks of rifles. Two men in tactical gear are preparing their equipment. This is Chapter 14, Murderous Intent. The soldiers receive their orders. Another deployment from Kazura, much to their dismay. They walk down a corridor, discussing how 29 of their comrades were recently wiped out. And to make matters worse, a young man named Genpei has vanished. They arrive at a large, ornate government-style building, where they are ordered to stay on guard. The squad leader instructs his men to set up a base of operations, and this time they will be laying traps. Meanwhile, a man with long, curly blonde hair stands before the grand building, his back to us. He vows to pay someone back for everything they did to him 100 times over. Holding a phone, he declares that this is his revenge, the very essence of his life. In the background, a woman is slumped against a pillar, tied up. Elsewhere, a young man with short blonde hair answers his phone, looking startled. He hesitantly asks, "Is that you, Genpei?" The voice on the other end belongs to his brother. The brother says he can tell Genpei is there just by the sound of his breathing and that he's been searching for him. Genpei stares wide-eyed, sweat beading on his face. The realization dawns on Genpei. "Brother?" he stammers. "Why do you have her phone?" His brother cryptically mentions the power of love as the phone screen shows the contact name Mitsuki. Then the brother sends a horrifying image. It's Mitsuki, tied to a pillar with her hands bound and a plastic bag pulled over her head. The brother taunts Genpei, saying that when in love, cheating is a very bad thing. Through the plastic, Mitsuki's terrified, tear-streaked face is visible. She cries out for Genpei, begging for help. Holding the phone up to the captive Mitsuki, the brother coldly asks if she knows what kind of torture this is, something he learned 10 years ago from the Colombian mafia. He graphically describes the method. You cover the head with a plastic bag, stab the throat with a transfusion needle, and let the blood slowly fill the bag. The victim will either bleed out or drown first. As Genpei screams in agony, his brother's face contorts into a sadistic grin. "This is your punishment," he snarls. "You abandoned the family and ran off with that damn woman." All Genpei can do is stare at his phone, at the image of Mitsuki pleading for him to save her. His brother delivers the final threat. "Hurry. Please. If you're not fast enough, this girl dies." The scene lingers on Mitsuki, still bound and suffocating, with a pet carrier lying ominously beside her. Genpei screams in pure, helpless rage. Suddenly, a new, calm voice cuts in, speaking into a phone. "Hey, take that thing off now." The voice is coming from behind Genpei. From the brother's perspective, he sees the bound Mitsuki, and hears the voice on the phone commanding him to treat her immediately. The camera reveals the speaker, Ojiro Shintaro. He's holding a knife to Genpei's throat, using him as a hostage. "If you don't," Ojiro threatens into the phone, "I'll slice this guy clean through." A split panel shows the absolute terror on both Mitsuki's and Gunpei's faces, caught between two madmen. On the other end of the line, the brother's expression shifts from sadistic glee to curiosity. He looks at his phone and asks, "Are you the one who killed all my subordinates?" The scene is a tense standoff, mirrored across two locations. Ojiro holds Genpei at knife point, while the brother watches through his phone with a deranged smile. In a cold, steady voice, Ojiro introduces himself, Ojiro Shintaro. Hearing Ojiro's name, the brother, Akira, starts laughing. Relaxing with the phone, he says he figured Ojiro and Mitsuki were working together and mockingly asks if Genpei has been treating him badly. Ojiro is not amused. He presses the knife closer to Genpei's eye, his face a mask of dark intent. "I'll kill him," he states coldly into the phone. Akira watches the live feed on his phone, seeing the terror in his brother's eyes. His own expression becomes serious as he takes in the scene. Ojiro turns his captor's psychological games back on him. He asks Akira, "Should I snap the neck first, or drive it through the eyeballs and into the brain?" Akira stares back, the taunts echoing his own recent threats. Having made a decision, Akira turns and gives a silent order to his subordinate before walking away down the long hall. The subordinate follows the order, ripping the plastic bag off Mitsuki's head. She coughs violently, gasping for air as blood spatters from her mouth. Reacting to Mitsuki's coughing, Genpei also coughs, a wave of relief and empathetic distress washing over him. In the other location, Mitsuki has collapsed on the floor, freed from the bag. Well, Akira says with amusement, casually sitting on the pet carrier next to Mitsuki's prone body. Akira makes his terms clear. He has no intention of going to Genpei's mansion. Instead, he'll send coordinates for just the two of them to meet. He then callously tells his brother Genpei to make sure you brush off your cat's fur. As Genpei slumps to the floor in defeat, with the immediate crisis over, Ojiro grabs Genpei by the back of his shirt. "Get up," he commands. "We're going." Genpei trembles, his spirit broken. "Do you really think you can win?" he asks, knowing the monstrous power of his brother. Ojiro, his eyes burning with intensity, grabs his gear. "This isn't about winning or losing," he retorts. Pulling on his beanie, Ojiro confronts Genpei, forcing him to face the real question. "Do you want to save her, or not?" The cats in the apartment scatter around them as the chapter comes to a dramatic end. A van drives down a dark, rainy road at night. A new chapter begins. Chapter 15, Monster. Inside the van, Ojiro asks Genpei what kind of guy his brother is. Genpei, driving, begins a strange story. "When we were kids, I watched the movie Aliens." Ojiro, cleaning a water bottle, looks up, confused. The scene flashes back to a young Genpei, sitting alone in a messy room, captivated by the large television in front of him. Genpei explains his chilling revelation. When he saw the alien queen on screen, he thought to himself, "She's exactly like my brother." He continues his story, revealing he was kidnapped 7 times as a child. A group called the Samara Brothers saved him 6 of those times. But the 7th time was different. As soon as his brother, Akira, found out he was kidnapped, he personally came looking for him. It was the one and only time his brother ever came to save him. The reason Akira got involved that one time? Because the kidnappers overdid it. The flashback shows a young Akira, his face a mask of fury, brutally murdering one of the culprits. A young, horrified Genpei watched as his brother stabbed the thugs who kidnapped him hundreds of times and tore their legs off. The 2 kidnappers who survived begged to be saved, but their efforts were in vain. Before Genpei even realized what was happening, the massacre was over. The next thing he knew, he was lying in a futon. And for some reason, his brother Akira was lying there too, next to a woman. Lying next to the traumatized boy, Akira calmly explained that the men who hurt him were all gone. He then made a chilling vow. From now on, he would always be the one to save Genpei, a promise that filled the child's eyes with pure terror. Back in the present, Genpei explains that his brother's horrific vengeance didn't stop with the kidnappers. He hunted down their relatives to the third degree and made them all disappear. Ojiro listens, his face grim, as Genpei hints that the most twisted part of the memory was what his brother said to him right after. The flashback continues. Akira lies in bed with the young Genpei, his arm around him. He tells him this is a brother's job, framing his monstrous actions as a form of protection. Leaning in, Akira whispers a promise into the terrified child's ear. When you grow up, you'll help me too. From an overhead view of the lonely room, Gunpei's small voice agrees. The pact was sealed. The flashback shifts to a later, darker time. In a grim, industrial-looking room, several men, including a younger Akira, watch as another man performs some kind of grotesque act on a person lying on a table. The air is filled with a sickening slurping sound. Genpei explains that he then got a tattoo as part of his initiation into this world. A young, terrified Genpei is shown sucking his own toes, while a shirtless, masked Akira sits watching him. The flashback ends. Back in the van, Gunpei's voice is filled with despair. That man, I don't understand him at all. As they drive down the forbidden road, Gunpei's torment spills out. Why does he love me? Does he think I could ever love him back? He's like an alien. Gunpei's story shifts to how he met Mitsuki. As soon as he grew up, he started helping with the association's work, a euphemism for his brother's criminal enterprise. He recounts the day he was ordered to carry out a kidnapping. But when he arrived, he found his target, a young woman, sitting alone with a suitcase. She had already been sold off as collateral for her family's debt. As he got closer, he saw she was gently petting a small black cat that had approached her. Genpei approached her and simply asked, "Do you like cats?" This was their first meeting. Mitsuki looked up at him, a tear-like mark under her eye. Genpei explains to Ojiro that that was the extent of their beginning. They weren't friends or allies. He let her live in the mansion just to take care of the cats. That was the only bond between them. He swears to Ojiro that there was nothing more to it, just a shared affection for the animals. Overcome with emotion, Genpei breaks down, gripping the steering wheel. And yet, he came to steal her away, he cries, seeing his brother's actions as the theft of the one pure thing in his life. Ojiro looks over at him, his expression firm. He's not stealing her, he says, correcting Genpei's perspective. A drone follows their van as it approaches Akira's massive, palace-like estate. Ojiro's resolve is set. This time, I'm his opponent. Inside, Akira and his right-hand man are alerted to their arrival. So they've arrived? Akira says, watching the drone feed on his phone. Akira's preparations for revenge are in full swing. Snipers take their positions on the rooftop, masked soldiers ready their guns in the surrounding woods, and a fleet of drones is launched. A confident smile plays on Akira's lips. It's time for the so-called genius to make his entrance, he says, eagerly anticipating the confrontation with Ojiro. In the passenger seat of the van, Ojiro is just as prepared, coolly loading his distinctive homemade shotgun. The stage is set. A sniper takes aim at the approaching van, while Genpei drives on, unaware. In another room, Mitsuki sits, a pawn in this deadly game. A final, dramatic shot shows the faces of Ojiro and Akira split down the middle, two opposing forces about to collide. Ojiro makes a silent, determined vow. I'll definitely save you. The chapter ends, leaving the battle about to begin. The chapter opens with a tense face-off between Oshiro Shintaro and a mysterious woman demanding the return of Genpei. Below, inside a car, Oshiro sits calmly, getting into position for the mission ahead. Oshiro looks back at his driver, Genpei, who asks if this is the place. As they gaze upon a large, ominous building in the distance, Genpei can't help but feel a sense of dread, calling his companion a dumbass for his nonchalant attitude. Suddenly, the back window shatters. A sniper has fired at them. Genpei screams in terror, shouting a warning about the danger. Genpei is furious, yelling at Oshiro for leaning forward despite knowing a sniper team would be present. Oshiro, however, remains unfazed, casually apologizing while holding a gun. Gunpei's panic escalates as he reminds Oshiro that the car isn't bulletproof and urges him to hide. Unconcerned, Oshiro continues to stare at the building, muttering "my bad." As Oshiro looks at the grand, classical-style building looming in the rain, he remarks on its similarity to another place. A confused Genpei asks him what he means. The scene flashes back to the Japanese diet building. Oshiro recalls how he once planned to attack it, a thought that still lingers in his mind. Back then, after extensive research, he had given up, overwhelmed by the building's formidable security. The memory fuels a grim determination on his face in the present. Returning to the present, Genpei nervously asks about their strategy. Oshiro gives a simple, reckless answer. They're charging straight in. Cursing under his breath, Genpei slams his foot on the accelerator. The van lurches forward, racing towards the enemy territory as sniper fire streaks through the air. Despite following the insane plan, Genpei is filled with doubt, believing such a simple tactic of breaking through the gate would never work on his brother. Just as he predicted, their path is suddenly blocked. A white van appears out of nowhere, cutting them off. Genpei looks through the rearview mirror just in time to see another van ram into them from the side. It was a trap. Their vehicle is violently pushed sideways, caught between the two enemy vans, effectively pinning them in place. With the back window smashed and their van immobilized, Oshiro sits silently amidst the wreckage while Genpei grips the steering wheel, sweating with fear and frustration. Genpei screams at Oshiro, questioning how they can possibly ignore this situation. Oshiro, with chilling intensity, yells back at him to ignore it and keep going. But there's nowhere to go. More vans converge on their position, completely boxing them in from all sides. The trap is complete. Their single black van is now entirely surrounded by a fleet of identical white vans, leaving no room for escape. Despair washes over Genpei as he sees the perfectly executed ambush. "Damn it! They got us!" he mutters, his hope draining away. From a sniper's perch on the building, armed guards look down at the trapped van. Genpei can't believe they were caught so easily. Gunpei's mind races with terror. He remembers the haunting, smiling face of the woman from before, convinced she will kill them all. He panics, thinking that if the old man dies, the cats and Mickey will die too. The enemy forces, clad in black with ski masks, ready their weapons. They are a professional team, armed with sniper rifles and assault gear, preparing to storm the surrounded vehicle. An operative smashes the driver's side window. He then thrusts a powerful weapon, what looks like a grenade launcher, directly into the van, ready to fire at point-blank range. As glass sprays across the car's interior, Genpei flinches with a cry of shock. In that same instant, Oshiro's hand darts out, grabbing his seatbelt. Without a moment's hesitation, Oshiro unbuckles the belt and yanks Genpei out of his seat, pulling him into the back of the van and creating the opening he needs for his next move. Oshiro smashes through the windshield of one of the white vans, climbing onto its roof as the ambush continues around them. Inside, he grabs the terrified Genpei, using him as a human shield. Oshiro knows the armed guards won't shoot if he keeps Genpei between them. In the confusion, one of the white vans begins to pull away. Shoving the screaming Genpei into the driver's seat of the getaway van, Oshiro forces him to drive. Below, the frustrated guards watch them speed off, yelling that they got away. The two guards in the van hesitate, realizing they can't risk hitting Genpei. They have no choice but to let them go for now. As the remaining vans give chase, Genpei panics, yelling that they're being followed. Oshiro, however, remains calm and tells him it's okay, having anticipated this. Oshiro reveals his ace in the hole, a beeping, makeshift explosive device. He declares that he still has one trick left up his sleeve. A massive explosion erupts in the distance, sending a shockwave through the area. This was Oshiro's diversion. Meanwhile, a mysterious man, Katsura, watches the entire scene unfold on his phone, fed by a nearby drone. A sadistic smile plays on his lips as he records the chaos. The fiery explosion casts an ominous glow on the main building, marking a dramatic end to this phase of the conflict. Inside the building, a young woman with dark hair, Mitsuki, is startled by the explosion outside. She wonders hopefully if it could be Genpei coming to rescue her. Suddenly, the van driven by Genpei, with Oshiro and a masked guard in tow, comes crashing through the lobby doors. The van smashes through the grand entrance of the building, shattering glass and stone as it plows into the main hall. Oshiro announces their arrival, telling Genpei they no longer need to worry about snipers. As he urges him to charge in, Katsura can be seen in the background asking if they are close. The female commander, watching from a safe distance, radios her team leader, Muraki, annoyed that their targets weren't tired out by the ambush. Muraki and his men are shocked by the reckless entry. The guards inside the lobby quickly recover, taking up positions around the crashed van as their commander comments on their opponent's unexpected coordination. Muraki takes aim with his assault rifle and unleashes a hail of bullets, riddling the side of the van. The sheer force of the gunfire sends the van flying, causing it to flip over completely in the middle of the hall. As the van lies wrecked, Muraki yells, "Now!" and orders his men to move in on the incapacitated vehicle, while Oshiro and Genpei look on from inside. Muraki shouts his orders to the team. Their primary objective is to separate Genpei from Oshiro, believing that without a hostage, they can easily take him down. The guards close in on the overturned van, but are ordered not to let them get to Katsura. From his vantage point, Katsura continues to film, calmly remarking that he'll wait and see how they plan to pull this off. In a moment of sheer panic, Genpei climbs out of the wreckage with his hands raised, shouting his surrender. As Genpei attempts to give up, Muraki is caught by surprise. From the wreckage, Oshiro coldly states, "That's what you are all gonna say." Oshiro emerges from behind, grabbing the surrendering Genpei and revealing a terrifying, homemade multi-barreled weapon. He forces Genpei to retract his surrender, demanding the soldiers say it instead. The armed guards freeze, staring in disbelief at the crude but intimidating weapon. It's a massive, custom-made, multi-barreled firearm, unlike anything they've seen before. Using the terrified Genpei as a human shield, Oshiro opens fire. The unwieldy weapon erupts, sending a devastating volley toward Muraki and his men as Genpei screams in the chaos. From his hiding spot, Katsura records the fight, immediately recognizing Oshiro's infamous homemade weapon. Katsura analyzes the weapon, noting it's different from a previous one found at the port. He deduces its wide shape is meant to counter automatic rifles but dismisses it as amateur work, predicting the thin barrel will snap after a single shot. Oshiro knows this too. A second shot isn't needed. He discards the firearm and pulls a knife, continuing to use Genpei as his shield. The guards open fire, but Oshiro expertly uses Genpei's body to block the shots. He dodges, kicks a guard's arm to misdirect their aim, and then shoves Genpei to the ground, out of the line of fire. In a display of brutal efficiency, Oshiro grabs the corpse of a fallen enemy, using it as a shield to absorb more bullets. Muraki watches in horror, realizing Oshiro is even using the dead. Oshiro continues his relentless assault, using the dead guard's body to charge forward and close the distance, deflecting a kick meant for him. A memory flashes in Muraki's mind. He recalls the incident at the port, realizing this is where Oshiro learned his cruel but effective tactics. He learned how to use hostages as a weapon. The scene shows the bloody aftermath of that previous encounter, where Oshiro first applied this brutal lesson. Watching the carnage unfold, Katsura is impressed. He sees Oshiro's brutal fight not as madness, but as a form of growth, as if he's trying to reclaim a lost part of himself. From across the hall, Mitsuki watches in terror, clutching a cat. Katsura walks past her, and she looks at the fighting Oshiro with the eyes of a terrorist, not a hero. Tears well up in Mitsuki's eyes as her world turns upside down. Genpei is a yakuza, and his rescuer, Oshiro, is a terrorist. Lost and confused, she doesn't know what to believe anymore. Kneeling on the cold floor, Mitsuki hugs the cat tightly, praying for someone, anyone, to hurry up and end this nightmare. The fight rages on. Oshiro, weary but determined, shields Genpei while fending off another attacker. He's beginning to show signs of exhaustion. Oshiro demands to know how many enemies are left. A terrified Genpei confesses he doesn't know, revealing the guard Oshiro just killed was named Tanaka and that his brother's unit is full of volunteers. Oshiro uses the information immediately, shouting out another guard's name, Kitu, to create a moment of hesitation. Though he's getting worn out, with multiple knives sticking out of his vest, Oshiro grits his teeth and finds a second wind, declaring he can keep going. But the brief moment of talking was a fatal mistake. Katsura, who had been watching for an opening, remarks that the conversation cost Oshiro his focus. He exploits a tiny gap that an ordinary man would never notice. In that instant, Katsura slips past Oshiro's guard and grabs Genpei, beginning the abduction of the younger brother. Now holding Genpei, Katsura smirks at the remaining soldiers. He mockingly compliments them for putting up a good fight and exhausting their ammo, then states that from here on it's personal and they can do as they please. As Katsura coolly walks away with his captive, he leaves a battered and abandoned Oshiro to face Muraki and the rest of the armed guards alone, telling him to get his revenge. The assault plan has come to a bitter end. The scene opens on a sliding door, cracked open by a hand as a voice calls out to an old man. The title card ominously reads, "Scarier than Hell." Inside a vehicle, Oshiro Shintaro realizes the gravity of their situation. He was caught in a blind spot, unable to sense the attack coming. The enemy was far stronger than he'd ever anticipated, and in the chaos, he fears Genpei has been taken. Outside, the aftermath is grim. A body lies on the blood-soaked ground as Oshiro stands alone, surrounded by a squad of heavily armed soldiers. An overturned vehicle suggests a violent crash has just occurred. The squad's leader, Muraki, cocks his weapon, his expression cold and professional. He advances on Oshiro, pointing his gun directly at him and asking for any last words. A close-up reveals Oshiro, sweating and seemingly trapped. Peeking from behind a nearby structure, Genpei watches the confrontation with wide-eyed terror, wondering aloud if Oshiro isn't afraid of dying. Muraki demands to know the lone vigilante's name. A faint, unnerving smile plays on Oshiro's lips as he gives a surprising answer, Muraki. The squad leader is taken aback, asking why he'd want to know. Oshiro continues his strange request, pointing at Muraki. He doesn't want to miss. He simply wants to know the name of the man who is about to kill him. Suddenly, Oshiro's demeanor shifts entirely. His face darkens with menace as he declares that if Muraki shoots, he will be the one to die. The squad leader looks on, stunned by the sudden, aggressive turn. Elsewhere in the building, the real mastermind, his aim Ryudai, appears with a captured Genpei. Seeing his sadistic older brother, who he thought was gone, Genpei looks shocked. Ryudai calmly states that he swore he would save him. Across the large hall, Tarachi Mitsuki, clutching her cat Fincher, cries out Genpei's name. As Ryudai leads him away, Genpei looks back, his face a mask of worry for Mitsuki. Genpei tries to run towards Mitsuki, desperate to help her and the injured cat. He cries out that Fincher needs to get to a hospital. Ryudai forcefully stops his brother, grabbing his arm. He coldly asks if he gave him permission to leave, and cruelly suggests Genpei should apologize for all the trouble he has caused. The situation escalates dramatically as Ryudai presses a large shotgun to his younger brother's head, announcing that it's time for his punishment. Mitsuki watches from afar, her face a picture of horror. Ryudai aims his weapon, and Genpei stares back, trapped and terrified. Ryudai reveals his twisted plan, showing off custom-made explosive bullets. He then turns his aim from Genpei to the helpless Mitsuki and her cat, sadistically asking his brother how he thinks it will feel to watch them blow to pieces. Ryudai stands poised, his finger on the trigger, a chilling smile on his face as he prepares to fire at Mitsuki. A close-up of Ryudai's eye shows his cold focus. From her position, a shocked Mitsuki looks on, exclaiming in disbelief as she sees something unexpected unfold behind the brothers. In a shocking turn of events, Genpei reveals a bomb strapped to his chest and a large, fierce tattoo covering his back. He looks his brother dead in the eye and makes a grim proposal, a murder-suicide. Ryudai seems unfazed, correctly guessing that the bomb was the idea of the terrorist, Oshiro. Genpei, clutching the detonator, confirms the threat. The moment Ryudai lays a hand on Mitsuki or the cat, he will press it. Genpei reaffirms his ultimatum to his brother with grim determination. If Ryudai makes a move, they will both go down together. Ryudai finds the situation amusing. He taunts Genpei, questioning if he would really die for a girl and a cat. He reminds Genpei that no matter how much he suffered, he has always prioritized his own survival above all else. Ryudai's words hit their mark. Genpei begins to hesitate, his resolve wavering. His brother smiles cruelly, telling him he can't do it because he isn't a true Yakuza. Genpei's bluff crumbles. With Mitsuki and the cat's lives hanging in the balance, his hand trembles on the detonator. He admits defeat, whispering that he just can't bring himself to do it. The scene flashes back, revealing the origin of the bomb vest. A terrified Genpei argues with Oshiro, questioning why he has to wear it just to be a hostage and fearing it could detonate by accident. Oshiro, completely unconcerned, calmly states that it won't, explaining that it's merely a precaution he himself wears all the time. Continuing the flashback, a shaken Genpei calls Oshiro insane, asking if he isn't afraid of death. Without even looking up from his phone, Oshiro gives a non-committal a display of casual indifference to mortality that leaves Genpei utterly stunned and beginning to understand the true nature of the man he's dealing with. The flashback concludes with Genpei staring at Oshiro, a look of awe and terror on his face. He finally understands the nature of the man before him, admitting, "You are far scarier than death." Oshiro explains his twisted worldview. He saw Genpei, Mitsuki, and the cat as an honest, regular group, and the thought of their simple existence scared him. He confesses that the thought that he might have killed someone like them in the past is a terrifying one. With a heavy heart, Oshiro admits that this fear, the fear of destroying innocence, is a feeling even scarier than death itself. The story snaps back to the present. Genpei, utterly defeated, lowers his hand from the detonator. He looks at his brother, his aim Ryudai, and admits, "I can't do it. I'm not like you." A cruel smirk plays on Ryudai's face. He tells his brother that he doesn't need to die because the only one dying here is someone else. Ryudai reveals who he's talking about. "That old man will kill you." He is referring to Oshiro. He then turns to Genpei with a cryptic question. As sounds of a struggle echo from the other room, Ryudai smiles sadistically. "Tell me, Genpei, how could a dead man do that?" The gunshots continue, causing Ryudai, Mitsuki, and Genpei to react. Ryudai realizes Oshiro is not only alive but still fighting. The sound of intense gunfire fills the hall, erupting from the arched doorway where Oshiro is making his last stand. With a chilling smile, Ryudai poses a final question to his brother as the chapter comes to an end. "What do you think, brother? Did he die? Or did he make it out alive?" A new chapter begins, flashing back to Oshiro and Genpei in a car. Oshiro is intensely interrogating Genpei, demanding to know everything about the men in his brother's unit. Names, backgrounds, weapons, and positions. In the car, Genpei struggles to provide useful information, offering trivial facts about his brother's men. He erupts in frustration, yelling that he knew the old unit, but Oshiro already killed them all. Oshiro calmly tells him to focus and share anything he can remember. The scene jumps back again, this time to the standoff between Oshiro and Muraki. As they face each other, Oshiro recalls the information Genpei gave him about the squad leader. During the standoff, Muraki boasts that in his 25-year career, he's never missed a shot. But Oshiro, with unnerving confidence, counters that if Muraki fires, he will be the one to die. The narrative returns to the car, where Genpei elaborates on Muraki's reputation. He describes him as a cool-headed and respected veteran, a fact that Oshiro files away as he prepares for the confrontation. Genpei recounts a critical rumor about Muraki's past. He once sacrificed himself for a subordinate, was captured and tortured. During the ordeal, his captors cut off one of his fingers, but he managed to survive and escape alone. Genpei reveals the final, crucial piece of intel from the flashback. Besides losing a finger, Muraki's right eye was also crushed during the torture. This physical weakness is the key Oshiro has been looking for. Back in the present fight, Muraki takes his shot. Using the intel from Genpei, Oshiro anticipates the flawed aim and gracefully leaps over the overturned van, dodging the bullet. Muraki stares in utter disbelief. He, the legendary marksman who never misses, has just missed his target. The bullet harmlessly struck the van behind Oshiro. Though he dodged the fatal shot, Oshiro wasn't fast enough to escape completely. He clutches his abdomen, revealing that a piece of shrapnel or the bullet's graze has left him wounded. Wounded but not out of the fight, Oshiro moves to his next tactic. He pulls out a small spray can, confident that this will be enough to turn the tables. Oshiro throws the can into the air. Believing it to be one of Oshiro's infamous homemade explosives, Muraki panics. He yells for his men to take cover, cursing himself for underestimating his opponent. As Muraki braces for an impact that never comes, Oshiro peeks out from behind cover with a triumphant smirk. He compliments the old soldier on his reaction but tells him he's unlucky. A thick cloud erupts from the can. As the smoke billows out, Muraki instantly realizes his grave mistake. He wasn't bracing for a bomb. It was a smoke screen. The hall is instantly filled with a dense, disorienting fog. Recognizing the tactic from a past encounter at the port, Muraki shouts in frustration, wondering where his target has vanished to and why he waited until now to deploy it. Inside the smoke, Muraki's men are completely disoriented, asking where their target is. Muraki, however, grits his teeth as a dreadful realization dawns on him. I get it, he thinks. Oshiro's thoughts race as he leaps through the chaos. He knows that in this confusion, stray bullets could easily hit Genpei, the very person he's trying to save. This was why he hesitated to use the smoke screen earlier. A battle in zero visibility is pure chaos, and the risk of Genpei being caught in the crossfire was too high. But now he has no choice. Just as he feared, the soldiers begin firing wildly into the smoke, their bullets spraying indiscriminately throughout the hall. Muraki screams at his men to fall back and stop panicking, furiously pointing out that they're shooting at their own team in the confusion. Spotting Oshiro's silhouette, Muraki is torn. He wants to shoot even if it means risking friendly fire, but something makes him hesitate. He sees Oshiro running and curses him to show himself. Muraki realizes with dawning horror that they have made a terrible mistake. This chaotic environment hasn't hindered Oshiro. It has transformed him back into the relentless killer from the port incident. With his knife in hand, Oshiro becomes a predator in the fog. Muraki understands now that this is what Oshiro excels at the most, turning chaos into his personal hunting ground. Oshiro unleashes his brutal way of killing, moving through the disoriented soldiers and cutting them down with ruthless efficiency in the close-quarters confusion. He moves like a phantom in the smoke, his blade finding its mark again and again, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. As the smoke begins to clear, Muraki confronts the lone survivor. He orders a bloodied and battered Oshiro to stay still, but Oshiro just stares back, defiant. Muraki removes his prosthetic right eye, his patience gone. Staring down his pistol sights, he vows to Oshiro that he won't miss a second time and that he will kill him for sure. Oshiro, however, remains calm. He points a finger at Muraki's firing hand and states the fact he learned from Genpei. By the way, Muraki, you're missing a finger on your right hand. Muraki dismisses the taunt, asking what his point is. Appearing like a ghost in the smoke, Oshiro delivers his verdict. Your bullets won't hit. Trusting his 25 years of experience, Muraki takes aim anyway. The scene cuts back to the main hall. The gunfire has finally stopped. His aim Ryudai, Genpei, and Mitsuki stand in the sudden, tense silence. A smug smile crosses Ryudai's face as he turns to his younger brother. "Well, brother, what did I tell you?" He gloats, certain that Oshiro has been killed. But a figure emerges from the smoky archway, a menacing silhouette holding a knife. It's Oshiro, battered but alive. He glares at Ryudai and snarls, "You damn brat! I came to kill you." A new chapter begins. The generals battle. The two leaders finally face each other. Ryudai mockingly introduces the blood-soaked Oshiro to Genpei, saying, "Here he is, brother, the man who can kill you." Mitsuki recognizes Oshiro as the man from before. Ryudai looks on with a calculating expression, recalling how he'd seen this man with Genpei, Mitsuki, and the cats, living like a strange little family. As Ryudai speaks, he slyly takes advantage of everyone's focus on Oshiro. He discreetly unclips the bomb vest from his brother Genpei's body. Ryudai now holds the vest, revealing the deception to Oshiro. The bomb that had caused Genpei so much turmoil was never a real threat. With a look of utter contempt for the crude, fake device, Ryudai casually tosses the bomb vest aside. Ryudai analyzes the look in Oshiro's eyes. He deduces that the emotion isn't the impatience of a failed plan or the hatred of someone who put his brother in danger. It's something else entirely. Aiming his gun directly at Gunpei's head, Ryudai identifies the true source of Oshiro's rage. It isn't a desire for justice. It's a pure. As the fake bomb lies uselessly on the floor, Ryudai reveals his shocking conclusion. The driving force behind Oshiro's bloody rampage is nothing more than a pure, burning flame of jealousy. But Ryudai isn't aiming at Oshiro. He fires above Genpei and Mitsuki, shouting at them to get down as the bullet strikes a massive stone pillar. The bullet, combined with the earlier damage, causes the pillar to explode. An exhausted Oshiro is thrown backward as Ryudai reveals his true target was the structure itself. Genpei realizes with horror that the debris is falling right where Mitsuki is. With a desperate scream, Genpei scrambles towards Mitsuki, trying to reach her before the collapsing ceiling does. He frantically calls her name, urging her to get up and run, but she remains frozen in fear, clutching her cat. At the last possible second, Oshiro throws himself over Mitsuki and her cat, shielding them from the crushing weight of the falling debris with his own body. Miraculously, Oshiro rises from the rubble. He scoops up Mitsuki and carries her out of the immediate danger zone as a stunned Genpei watches on. Holding Mitsuki, Oshiro grimaces and apologizes, realizing his own homemade explosives must have had too much gunpowder, inadvertently weakening the pillar and leading to the collapse. While Genpei is still trying to process what just happened, Oshiro instructs them both to hide. With grim determination, he declares he will kill Ryudai alone. As Oshiro prepares for the final battle, Ryudai is lost in his own bitter thoughts. He reflects on the fact that throughout this entire ordeal, his younger brother, Genpei, never once looked at him. The jealousy boils over. Ryudai confronts Genpei directly, asking if he truly considers the girl and the cat more important than his own brother. Ryudai then turns his bitter monologue toward Oshiro. He laments that the one Genpei chose to entrust his life to was not him, but this stranger. His gaze fixes on Oshiro, his mind consumed by a single, agonizing question. Why this man? Why did Genpei choose this nobody over his own flesh and blood? Losing control, Ryudai fires his gun wildly, screaming in a jealous rage, "Why? Why him and not me?" Oshiro explodes into action, dodging the bullet and tackling Ryudai, who is shocked at his opponent's speed and ferocity. From Oshiro's perspective, we see him attempting to use a handheld taser to incapacitate his powerful foe during the struggle. Ryudai continues his obsessive questioning, demanding to know what makes them different. Oshiro, bleeding and exhausted, can only think one thing as he struggles to his feet. He's strong. Ryudai easily kicks the wounded Oshiro away. He looms over him, demanding to be told what qualities Oshiro possesses that he doesn't, desperate to understand Gunpei's choice. Oshiro collapses onto the debris-strewn floor, seemingly defeated. Ryudai stands over him, momentarily victorious. But Oshiro looks up, his gaze steady despite the blood dripping from his face. He dismisses Ryudai's existential crisis, telling him it's not worth worrying about because he doesn't even know his name. Infuriated by the disrespect, Ryudai announces his full title with pride and arrogance. The young leader of the His Aim group, under the Akijigumi of the Kokubu, His Aim Ryudai. Slowly, painfully, Oshiro gets back on his feet. He gives his own name in return, a simple Ojiro Shintaro. He then tells the crime boss that it's his turn to answer a question. With a twisted, manic grin, Ryudai spreads his arms and asks the one question that has been driving his entire sadistic campaign, bringing the chapter to a shocking end. Who is the man Genpei fell in love with?